They said he destroyed the company. They said he stole millions. They said Ryan Mercer was a thief who belonged in prison. But nobody asked about the little girl who saw everything. This is the story of how a single father lost everything in one brutal afternoon: his job, his reputation, his future, all because someone wanted him gone. What happens when the truth hides in a child's crayon drawing? When corporate power crushes the innocent? When one woman dares to question what everyone else accepts? Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The security badge beeped 3 times before Ryan Mercer understood what it meant. Red light, access denied. The magnetic lock on the glass doors stayed shut. He stood in the parking garage of Virex Systems with melting snow dripping from his jacket, staring at the small plastic card in his hand like it had betrayed him. Behind him, his daughter Chloe shifted her weight from foot to foot, her purple backpack sliding down one shoulder. "Daddy, I'm cold." Ryan swiped the badge again. Same result. 3 beeps. Red light. "Just a second, sweetheart." The wind howled through the concrete pillars of the garage, carrying sharp needles of ice that stung his face. Chicago in February was unforgiving, but this storm felt personal. The kind of cold that got inside your bones and stayed there. He pulled out his phone. The screen showed 2 missed calls from Martin Graves, head of security. 1 voicemail. Ryan's stomach tightened as he pressed play. "Ryan, it's Martin. Don't come back to the building. HR needs to speak with you first thing Monday morning. We'll explain everything then." That was it. No context, no explanation. Just a wall going up between him and the only job he'd had since Chloe was 2 years old. "Daddy?" Chloe was looking up at him with those big brown eyes that reminded him so much of Sarah. His wife had been gone for 4 years now, taken by a drunk driver on a rainy Tuesday that Ryan still couldn't think about without his chest tightening. Chloe barely remembered her mother, which somehow made it worse. "We're going home, baby." "But you said we had to get your laptop." "Well, change of plans." Ryan guided her back toward their car, a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a crack in the windshield he kept meaning to fix. The snow was coming down harder now, fat flakes that stuck to everything. The weather reports had called it a historic blizzard. Schools across the city had closed at noon, which was why Chloe was here in the first place. Ryan had no choice but to bring her to work. He'd set her up in the small break room on the 3rd floor with her coloring books and tablet, checking on her every 20 minutes between server maintenance calls. She'd been fine. Happy, even. Drawing pictures of cats and snowmen while he fixed network issues and responded to panicked emails from managers who didn't understand how computers worked. Everything had been fine until 2:47 p.m. That's when the entire Virex network went down. Ryan had been in the break room with Chloe when it happened, helping her pick up crayons she'd spilled across the floor. He'd heard the commotion through the walls, raised voices, phones ringing, someone shouting about lost data. By the time he got to his desk, half the IT department was already crowded around the server room. The damage was catastrophic. Someone had executed a script that wiped critical databases and corrupted backup files. Millions of dollars in contracts, client data, financial records, gone in seconds. The kind of sabotage that required admin-level access and intimate knowledge of Virex's infrastructure. The kind of access Ryan Mercer had. He'd spent the next 3 hours working frantically with the team to restore what they could from off-site backups. Nobody spoke to him directly, but he felt their eyes. By 5 o'clock, Martin Graves had pulled him aside and asked him to wait in the conference room, alone. Ryan had sat there for 40 minutes before someone finally came in. Not Martin, but Jennifer Park from HR, carrying a manila folder and wearing an expression that made his blood run cold. "Ryan, we need to talk about what happened today." "I was helping fix it. I was trying to..." "The preliminary investigation shows the attack originated from your workstation. Your credentials were used to access the server at 2:43 p.m. "That's impossible. I was with my daughter. I wasn't even at my desk." Jennifer had opened the folder, sliding a printed log across the table. "This shows otherwise." Ryan had stared at the timestamps, his mind racing. The login was real, his username, his password, but he hadn't been anywhere near his computer. "Someone used my credentials. Someone logged in as me." "That's a serious accusation." "It's the truth." Jennifer had closed the folder with a soft click. "We're placing you on immediate administrative leave pending a full investigation. You'll need to surrender your badge and building access. We'll be in touch through official channels." "You're firing me." We're conducting an investigation. You're firing me without even listening. Jennifer had stood up, smoothing her skirt. You're free to retain legal counsel. We'll have a formal meeting next week. That had been 2 hours ago. Now Ryan sat in his car with the engine running, waiting for the heat to kick in while Chloe buckled herself into the booster seat in the back. Why are we leaving early? She asked. Work stuff, nothing for you to worry about. Are you in trouble? Ryan caught her eyes in the rearview mirror. Kids always knew. They could smell fear and uncertainty the way dogs could smell storms coming. No, baby, I'm not in trouble. The lie tasted bitter on his tongue. He pulled out of the parking garage into chaos. The snow had transformed Chicago into something unrecognizable. Cars crawled along Michigan Avenue with their hazard lights blinking. Traffic signals swayed in the wind. A city bus sat abandoned at an intersection, its emergency exit door hanging open. The drive home normally took 20 minutes. Today it took 90. Ryan lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Rogers Park, the kind of neighborhood where kids played basketball in the streets, and neighbors knew each other's names. It wasn't fancy, but the rent was manageable and the school district was decent. Everything he did was for Chloe. Every decision, every sacrifice, every missed opportunity. He'd turned down a promotion last year because it would have meant longer hours and more travel. He'd stopped dating entirely because he couldn't imagine bringing someone new into Chloe's life while she was still processing the loss of her mother. He'd built his entire existence around being the parent she needed, and now someone had taken it all away. By the time they reached the apartment, Chloe had fallen asleep in her booster seat, her head tilted at an angle that would make her neck sore later. Ryan carried her inside, careful not to wake her, and laid her gently on the couch. He covered her with the fleece blanket Sarah had bought at a street fair, back when life was normal and the future felt predictable. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Chen, his closest friend at Virex, and the only person in IT he actually trusted. Dude, what the hell happened? They're saying you crashed the whole system. Ryan typed back with shaking fingers. I didn't do it. Someone used my login. Who? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. 3 dots appeared as Marcus typed, then disappeared, then appeared again. Be careful, man. People are pissed, like really pissed. Ryan set the phone down and walked to the window. Snow continued falling in the streetlight's orange glow. Somewhere out there, someone had destroyed his life and was probably sleeping peacefully tonight, confident they'd gotten away with it. He thought about the timeline. He'd logged into his workstation at 8:47 a.m. when he first arrived. He'd been actively working until noon when the school closure forced him to go pick up Chloe. After bringing her back to the office, he'd stayed with her in the break room most of the afternoon, only returning to his desk sporadically to check emails. Someone could have accessed his computer during those gaps. If they knew his password or had some way to bypass it, they could have logged in remotely while he was occupied elsewhere. But who? And why frame him specifically? Ryan had worked at Virex for 4 years without making enemies. He kept his head down, did his job well, and avoided office politics. He wasn't the type to inspire jealousy or resentment. He was just a guy trying to keep the lights on for his daughter. Unless there was something he'd missed, some grudge he hadn't noticed, some perceived slight that had festered in someone else's mind until it became poisonous. He pulled out his laptop and started searching through old emails, looking for anything that might explain this. Tense exchanges with coworkers, projects that had gone wrong, decisions that might have angered someone. Nothing stood out. Around midnight, Chloe woke up disoriented and hungry. Ryan made her grilled cheese sandwiches and let her watch cartoons on the couch, while he continued digging through digital records. He checked server logs, audit trails, maintenance schedules, anything that might reveal who had been near his desk that afternoon. Daddy, you're not sleeping again. Chloe was standing in the doorway of his bedroom, clutching her stuffed elephant. It was 3 a.m. Ryan had lost track of time. Just working on something, sweetheart. Go back to bed. Is it because of work? Sort of. She patted across the room and climbed onto the bed beside him, resting her head against his shoulder. Are we going to be okay? Ryan closed the laptop and put his arm around her. She was small for 6 years old, delicate in a way that terrified him. The world felt too big and too dangerous for someone so small. Yes, he said. We're going to be okay. Promise? Promise. She fell asleep against him within minutes. Ryan stayed awake until dawn, watching the snow fall and thinking about everything he stood to lose. The weekend passed in a fog of anxiety and forced normalcy. Ryan made pancakes Saturday morning and took Chloe to the park despite the cold. They built a snowman with stick arms and a carrot nose, and for a few hours he almost forgot about Virex systems and ruined servers and accusations he couldn't defend against. But Sunday night the dread came flooding back. He put Chloe to bed early and sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad, writing down everything he could remember about Friday. Every conversation, every movement, every person he'd seen near his desk. The list was short and unhelpful. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Ryan dropped Chloe at school and drove to Virex with his stomach in knots. Jennifer Park had scheduled the meeting for 9 o'clock. He arrived 15 minutes early and sat in his car, watching employees stream into the building through the revolving glass doors. People he'd worked alongside for years. People who'd asked him for help fixing their computers. People who'd complimented his daughter's drawings when she visited the office. Did they believe he was guilty? Had they already made up their minds? At 8:57, Ryan walked into the building. His badge still didn't work. The security guard had to manually let him through after checking his ID. The lobby felt different somehow, colder. People who normally smiled and waved kept their eyes down. A woman from accounting literally turned around and walked the other direction when she saw him. The elevator ride to the 8th floor felt like descending into hell. Jennifer Park was waiting in conference room B with 2 other people Ryan didn't recognize. A man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as Thomas Brennan from Virex's legal team. A woman with sharp eyes and a tablet who said nothing at all. "Thank you for coming, Ryan," Jennifer said, gesturing to a chair. "Please, sit down." Ryan sat. The chair felt too small and too low, like he was a child being called to the principal's office. "We've completed our preliminary investigation into Friday's incident," Jennifer continued, "and I'm afraid the evidence is quite damaging." Thomas Brennan opened a folder and slid several documents across the table. Server logs, access records, a timeline that showed Ryan's credentials being used to execute the malicious script at precisely 2:43 p.m. "We have digital forensic evidence that the attack came from your workstation," Brennan said. His voice was smooth and practiced, the voice of someone who'd done this many times before. "Your login, your password, your physical terminal." "I wasn't at my desk," Ryan said. "I was with my daughter in the break room." "Do you have any proof of that?" "She was there. She saw me." Brennan's expression didn't change. "Ryan, I understand you're going through a difficult time. Single parenthood is challenging. Financial stress can lead people to make poor decisions. I didn't do this. Then who did? I don't know, but someone used my credentials, someone who knew my password or had access to my computer." Jennifer exchanged a look with Brennan. The silent woman made a note on her tablet. "The damage to Virex is extensive," Jennifer said quietly. "We've lost client data that can't be recovered. Contracts worth millions of dollars are in jeopardy. The board is demanding accountability." Ryan felt the room closing in around him. "You're firing me. We're terminating your employment effective immediately, with cause, which means no severance, no benefits continuation, and a notation in your personnel file that will be disclosed to future employers." The words hit like physical blows. No severance, no health insurance, no way to explain this to anyone who might hire him in the future. "You're destroying my life over something I didn't do." Brennan leaned forward. "If you cooperate with our investigation and provide information about any accomplices or motivations, we might be willing to negotiate the terms of your departure. Perhaps remove the cause designation. Provide a neutral reference." "Accomplices? You think I'm part of some conspiracy?" "We think you're protecting yourself and possibly others. The sooner you're honest with us, the better this goes for everyone." Ryan stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. "I have nothing to confess because I did nothing wrong. You're railroading me because it's easier than doing actual detective work." "Ryan, I'm done here." He walked out before anyone could stop him, his heart hammering against his ribs. The hallway stretched endlessly in both directions. Faces appeared in doorways and quickly disappeared. Whispers followed him like ghosts. The elevator took forever to arrive. When the doors finally opened, Evan Reed was inside. Evan was a senior technician who'd been at Virex for 7 years. Mid-40s, thinning hair, always wore the same rotation of 5 polo shirts. He was competent enough at his job, but had a reputation for complaining about younger employees getting opportunities he felt entitled to. Ryan had never had much interaction with him beyond basic work coordination. "Tough break, Mercer," Evan said as Ryan stepped into the elevator. "Yeah, didn't think you had it in you, honestly. Always seemed so straight-laced." Ryan turned to look at him. Evan was smiling slightly, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I didn't do it," Ryan said. "Sure. None of us ever do." The elevator dinged at the ground floor. "Good luck finding another gig. It's a small world, you know. Word gets around." Evan walked away whistling, leaving Ryan standing in the empty elevator, something cold forming in his chest. He drove home in a daze and picked up Chloe from school early, making up some excuse about a dentist appointment. She chattered about her day while he nodded mechanically, only half listening. That night, after putting her to bed, Ryan sat in the dark living room with a beer he didn't drink and thought about giving up. About how easy it would be to just accept this, to stop fighting, to let the machinery of corporate justice grind him into dust. But then he thought about Chloe waking up in the morning asking what they were going to do, about the stuffed elephant she still slept with, about the promise he'd made to Sarah in the hospital before she died, that he would take care of their daughter no matter what. He couldn't give up, not yet. Ryan pulled out his laptop and started searching. He found articles about wrongful termination, forums where IT professionals discussed similar situations, legal aid organizations that might help someone in his position. Most of the advice was grim. Without evidence, without witnesses, without anything to counter the digital trail pointing directly at him, his options were limited. Around 2 a.m, his phone rang. Unknown number. Ryan almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Mr. Mercer?" A woman's voice, crisp and confident. "Yes?" "This is Isabella Laurent. I'm the CEO of Virex Systems. I apologize for calling so late, but I just returned from Singapore and reviewed the incident reports from Friday. I'd like to speak with you tomorrow morning if you're available." Ryan's mind went blank. The CEO? Calling him directly? Yes. I can meet tomorrow." "Excellent. 9 a.m. at the main office. Bring your daughter if you need to. I understand childcare can be complicated." "How did you... I read all the witness statements. I know she was with you Friday afternoon. That's actually part of why I want to talk. Sleep well, Mr. Mercer." She hung up before he could respond. Ryan sat holding the phone, his heart racing for an entirely different reason now. Isabella Laurent had a reputation in the industry as someone who turned failing companies into powerhouses. She'd taken over VRX 18 months ago when it was hemorrhaging money and transformed it into one of Chicago's fastest-growing tech firms. She was also known for being ruthless with incompetence and fierce about truth. If she wanted to talk, maybe there was still hope. Ryan managed 2 hours of sleep before Chloe woke him up asking for breakfast. He made eggs and toast while she told him about a dream where their cat Mr. Whiskers learned to fly. They didn't have a cat. They'd never had a cat. But in Chloe's imagination, Mr. Whiskers was orange and fluffy and could do aerial tricks. "Can we get a real cat, Daddy?" "Maybe someday, sweetheart." "When someday?" "When things settle down a bit." She accepted this with the easy faith of a 6-year-old who believed her father could make anything happen. At 8:45, Ryan pulled into the Virex parking garage with Chloe in the back seat. His hands were sweating on the steering wheel. His badge still wouldn't work, so he had to call security to get in. This time, they were expecting him. A security officer escorted them to the executive floor, somewhere Ryan had never been in 4 years of employment. The decor changed dramatically on the 20th floor. Marble instead of industrial carpet. Original art on the walls instead of motivational posters. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. Isabella Laurent's assistant met them at the elevator. She was younger than Ryan expected, maybe 25, with purple streaks in her black hair. "Mr. Mercer, Ms. Laurent is ready for you, and this must be Chloe." Chloe hid behind Ryan's leg, suddenly shy. "There's a lounge area just through there," the assistant continued, gesturing down the hall. "Lots of toys and books. Your daughter is welcome to wait there while you meet." "Actually," a voice said from the doorway behind her, "I'd prefer if Chloe joined us." Isabella Laurent stepped into the hallway. She was shorter than Ryan expected from her photographs, maybe 5'4" in heels, but she carried herself like someone much larger. Dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, minimal makeup. A black suit that probably cost more than Ryan's monthly rent. Her eyes were what caught him, sharp and assessing, but not unkind. "Hello, Chloe," Isabella said, crouching down to the girl's level. "I heard you like to draw." Chloe peeked out from behind Ryan's leg. "Sometimes. I used to draw when I was your age. Mostly horses, though I wasn't very good at them. Do you want to show me some of your pictures while your dad and I talk?" Chloe looked up at Ryan, who nodded. She slowly pulled her backpack around and unzipped it, revealing a stack of drawings held together with paper clips. "Come on then," Isabella said, standing up and extending her hand. "Let's go look at these properly." She led them into a corner office that was somehow both luxurious and understated. A massive desk sat near the windows, but Isabella directed them to a seating area with comfortable chairs and a low coffee table. Chloe climbed onto the couch and started spreading out her drawings. Isabella sat beside her, examining each one with genuine interest. "This is Mr. Whiskers," Chloe explained, pointing to an orange blob with 4 stick legs. "He's our cat, except we don't really have him, just in pretend." "I see. And what's this one?" "That's Daddy at work. See, that's his computer." Ryan sat across from them, completely bewildered. This wasn't what he'd expected. Where was the confrontation? The accusations? The security team ready to escort him out? Isabella spent 5 minutes looking at Chloe's drawings before finally turning her attention to Ryan. "Mr. Mercer, I've reviewed everything we have about Friday's incident. The server logs, the forensic analysis, the timeline. I've also reviewed your employment record. 4 years without a single disciplinary issue. Consistent positive performance reviews. You've trained 3 junior technicians and volunteered for the overnight maintenance shifts no one else wants." Ryan didn't know what to say. "I've also noted that you were passed over for a promotion last year despite being the most qualified candidate. The position went to Evan Reed, who had seniority but frankly less impressive credentials." "I didn't mind," Ryan said quietly. "The promotion would have meant more hours, more travel, less time with your daughter. Yes, I read the notes from your manager. You explicitly requested to stay in your current role for personal reasons." Isabella stood and walked to the window, looking out at the snow-covered city. "I built my career on instinct, Mr. Mercer, on reading people and situations that don't quite add up. And this situation doesn't add up. I didn't crash the servers." "I'm aware." Ryan blinked. "You believe me?" "I believe that someone with your track record and your constraints doesn't suddenly commit corporate sabotage. I also believe that digital evidence can be manipulated by someone with sufficient access and motivation." She turned back to face him. "What I don't have is proof, which is why I need your help." "My help?" "Walk me through Friday. Every detail you can remember. Who you saw, where you went, what you did, everything." So Ryan told her. He explained the school closure, bringing Chloe to work, setting her up in the break room. He described his routine that day, the maintenance tickets he'd handled, the people he'd interacted with. While he talked, Chloe continued coloring with markers Isabella's assistant had brought in. She was drawing a snowstorm now, swirls of white against blue paper. "You said you were in the break room when the crash happened?" Isabella asked. "Yes." Chloe had spilled her crayons. I was helping her pick them up. "What time was that?" "Around 2:45, I think. Maybe a little earlier." Isabella made a note on her tablet. "And before that? Where were you?" "I'd been checking on a printer issue on the 5th floor. Got back to the break room around 2:30. "Can anyone confirm that?" Ryan thought hard. "Maybe. There were people on the elevator. I said hello to someone from marketing, but I don't remember her name." Isabella was quiet for a moment, studying something on her screen. "The attack was executed at 2:43 p.m. from your workstation on the 3rd floor. For you to have done it, you would have needed to leave the break room, go to your desk, execute the script, and return before anyone noticed you were gone." "But I didn't." "I know. Because Martin Graves has security footage showing you in the 3rd floor break room at 2:45 p.m. You're visible through the doorway, crouching on the floor with your daughter." Ryan's heart skipped. "Then that proves you weren't at your desk at 2:45. It doesn't prove you weren't there at 2:43. 2 minutes is enough time to execute a pre-written script." The hope that had flared died just as quickly. "However," Isabella continued, "it does narrow the window significantly, and it makes me very interested in who else had access to your workstation that afternoon." She pulled up another file on her tablet. "I've requested detailed badge logs for everyone who entered or exited the 3rd floor between 2:30 and 3 p.m. I've also asked IT to pull workstation access logs showing any remote logins during that window. And I've instructed Martin Graves to review all security camera footage from the area around your desk. Ryan felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Hope, maybe, or just the absence of despair. Why are you doing this? He asked. Everyone else has already decided I'm guilty. Isabella set down her tablet and looked at him directly. Because I spent 10 years watching innocent people get destroyed by systems that prioritize convenience over truth. Because I built this company on the principle that we do things right, even when it's hard. And because... She glanced at Chloe, who was now drawing a picture of the office building with careful concentration. Because that little girl deserves a father who hasn't been wrongly convicted of something he didn't do. Chloe looked up, holding out her latest drawing. Ms. Isabella, look. This is your building in the snow. Isabella took the picture and examined it carefully. The Virex tower rendered in crayon, surrounded by swirling white flakes. In the corner, an orange cat sat by a window. Who's this? Isabella asked, pointing to the cat. That's Mr. Whiskers. He watches the snow with me. When did you draw this? Friday, when Daddy was working. See, I wrote the time. She had indeed. In careful kindergarten numbers, 2:15 p.m. Isabella went very still. Chloe, she said gently, when you drew this, where were you sitting? By the window in the room with the vending machines. And your dad was with you? Uh-huh. He was reading his emails on his phone. Isabella looked at Ryan with an expression he couldn't quite read. Did you keep this drawing? It's right here, Chloe said, pointing to it in Isabella's hands. No, I mean, was this drawing with you all afternoon? Chloe nodded. I did it first, then the snowman, then the rainbow cats. Ryan's mind was racing. If Chloe had been with him, drawing this picture at 2:15 p.m., and it showed the time. This is her handwriting, Isabella said quietly. A 6-year-old's timestamp. No one could fake this. She stood abruptly and walked to her desk, pressing a button on her phone. Martin, I need you in my office immediately. Bring every piece of evidence we have from the Mercer investigation. Everything. She hung up and turned back to Ryan. Your daughter just gave us something better than security footage, Isabella said. She gave us a timeline that can't be disputed. Martin Graves arrived 8 minutes later, carrying a leather portfolio stuffed with papers and a tablet under his arm. He was a former Chicago PD detective who'd moved into corporate security after a knee injury ended his patrol days. Ryan had always found him fair but distant, the kind of man who followed procedures without questioning them. Today, though, Martin looked uncertain. His eyes flicked between Isabella, Ryan, and the little girl still coloring on the couch. You wanted to see everything? Martin asked, setting the portfolio on Isabella's desk. Everything. Start with the security footage from Friday afternoon. 3rd floor, between 2:15 and 3 p.m. Martin pulled out his tablet and navigated through several screens. We've got 4 cameras covering that floor. Here's the main corridor view. He turned the tablet so they could all see. The footage showed the hallway outside the break room in grainy black and white. Timestamp in the corner, 2:38 p.m. Can you zoom in on the break room doorway? Isabella asked. Martin tapped the screen. The image jumped closer, pixelated but clear enough. Through the open door, Ryan could see himself sitting at one of the small tables, phone in hand. Chloe was barely visible, just the top of her head over the table edge. Now jump to 2:43. The timestamp advanced. Ryan was still there, same position, still on his phone. 2:45. Now Ryan was on the floor, half obscured by the table, picking up crayons just like he'd said. Chloe's purple backpack was visible beside him. Isabella leaned closer. He's in frame the entire time. Not quite, Martin said, his voice carefully neutral. There's a gap between 2:41 and 2:42 where the camera buffered. Power fluctuation from the storm. Happens sometimes when the backup generators kick in. How long? 47 seconds. Ryan felt his stomach drop. 47 seconds. Long enough to run to his desk, execute a script, and run back. Except, Isabella said, picking up Chloe's drawing, he was with his daughter at 2:15, drawing this picture, and she wrote the time herself. Martin took the paper, examining it closely. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. A 6-year-old's handwriting, he said quietly. Can't be faked, Isabella replied. Can't be backdated. She drew this in real time at 2:15 p.m. with her father sitting beside her, which means he was in that break room before, during, and after the attack. Unless someone else executed it remotely using his credentials. Exactly. Martin set down the drawing and pulled up another file. I pulled the workstation logs like you asked. Ryan's computer shows 3 login sessions Friday afternoon. He turned the tablet again. 3 entries. 1:47 p.m. Local login. Duration 12 minutes. 2:43 p.m. Local login. Duration 3 minutes, 3:15 p.m. Local login. Duration 47 minutes. The 1:47 session was legitimate, Ryan said, leaning forward to look. I was checking on a ticket before I went to pick up Chloe from school. And 3:15 was when you came back after the crash, Martin said. You were helping the team try to restore the backups, which leaves 2:43, Isabella said. 3 minutes, just enough time to execute the attack script and disconnect. But I wasn't there. Martin pulled up another screen. Here's where it gets interesting. Your workstation is configured to lock after 5 minutes of inactivity, company policy. But the 2:43 login shows no lock screen bypass. Whoever accessed it either knew your password or was already logged in. My computer locks every time I step away, Ryan said. I'm careful about that. Unless someone prevented it from locking, Isabella said. She turned to Martin. Can you disable the auto lock remotely? Not without admin privileges, but you could run a script that simulates keyboard activity, keeping the session alive. Isabella's eyes narrowed. So someone could have accessed Ryan's computer during his legitimate 1:47 session, installed a keep alive script, then returned at 2:43 to execute the attack while Ryan was in the break room. Theoretically, yes. Who has the technical knowledge to do that? Martin scrolled through another file. In the IT department, about 15 people, but only 7 were in the building Friday afternoon. He listed them. Evan Reed, Marcus Chen, 2 junior technicians Ryan barely knew, the department manager who'd been in meetings all day, and 2 contractors working on a separate project. Marcus wouldn't do this, Ryan said immediately. We've been friends for years. Everyone's a suspect until they're not, Martin replied, but his tone wasn't harsh, just procedural. Isabella walked back to the window, her reflection ghostly in the glass. Snow still fell outside, lighter now, but persistent. The city looked clean and blank under its white blanket, like everything ugly had been temporarily erased. I want to see the physical security logs, she said without turning around. Who badged into the 3rd floor IT area between 1:30 and 3 p.m.? Martin swiped through more data. 17 different people, most of them multiple times. It's a high-traffic area. Who was there during Ryan's 1:47 session? 6 people. Ryan, Marcus Chen, Evan Reed, and 3 others from different departments who were there for printer issues. And who badged in between 2:35 and 2:50? Just Evan. At 2:39 p.m., badged out again at 2:51. Ryan felt something cold settle in his chest. Evan had been at his desk, right before the attack. That doesn't prove anything, Martin said, but he was frowning now. Evan's workstation is in the same area. He could have been accessing his own computer. Pull up the camera footage, Isabella said, the one that covers the desk area. Martin hesitated. That camera's been broken for 2 months. Facilities keeps promising to fix it, but of course it is. Isabella turned back to them, her expression hard. Let me guess. Evan submitted the repair ticket for that camera? Martin checked his tablet. His silence was answer enough. When? 3 months ago, marked low priority. Convenient. Isabella crossed her arms. What else do we know about Evan Reed? Martin pulled up a personnel file. 44 years old, been with Virex for 7 years, senior technician. Performance reviews are adequate. Nothing exceptional. Some complaints from other staff about his attitude, but nothing that rose to HR action. What kind of complaints? Resistance to training younger employees, resentment about not advancing faster, general negativity. Ryan remembered the elevator conversation, the way Evan had smiled, that comment about word getting around in a small industry. He said something to me, Ryan said quietly. After I was fired, in the elevator, he said it's a small world and word gets around. Isabella's eyes sharpened. Like he was threatening you? Like he was enjoying it? Chloe had abandoned her coloring and was now standing at the window, watching snowflakes drift past the glass. She pressed her hands against the cold surface, leaving small prints that faded almost immediately. "Daddy, can we go see the snow later?" "Maybe, sweetheart." "Mr. Whiskers would like it." Martin glanced at Isabella, confused. She shook her head slightly. "Not important right now." "I want to talk to Evan," Isabella said. "But not yet. First, I want to know exactly what script was used to crash the servers. Can you get me the technical forensics?" "Already have them." Martin pulled up another file. It was a wiper script, targeted specific databases and corrupted the backup validation checksums so they couldn't be restored without extensive work. How sophisticated. Very. Whoever wrote it knew our exact infrastructure. The database schemas, the backup systems, the validation protocols. It wasn't some script they downloaded off the internet. Could Ryan have written it? Martin looked uncomfortable. Technically, yes, he has the knowledge, but so do most of the senior IT staff. Could Evan have written it? Also, yes. Isabella pulled out her phone and dialed a number. "Jennifer, it's Isabella. I need you to pull Evan Reed's personnel file and send it to my office. Everything. Performance reviews, salary history, any disciplinary actions. I also want to know if he submitted any complaints or grievances in the last 2 years." She listened for a moment. "I don't care if it's irregular. Do it now." She hung up and looked at Ryan. "Tell me about your relationship with Evan." "We don't have one. We work in the same department, but we barely interact." "Did you ever have any conflicts with him?" Ryan thought back over 4 years of employment. "Not really. He made some comment once about me getting special treatment because I'm a single parent, but it wasn't a big thing." "When was this?" "Maybe a year ago? Right after I turned down that promotion." "The one that went to him?" "Yeah." Isabella's expression suggested this was exactly what she'd expected to hear. "So you were offered a position, declined it for personal reasons, and Evan got it instead." "But he still ended up with the job. Why would he resent me?" "Because you turned it down," Martin said quietly. "Which meant management thought you were better qualified. He got the promotion, but everyone knew he was second choice." "That's insane. Why would he care?" "Pride," Isabella said. "Ego. The same reasons people do most destructive things." Jennifer Park arrived 20 minutes later with Evan's file. She looked uncomfortable handing it to Isabella, like she knew this investigation had shifted in a direction she didn't like. "Is there anything else you need?" Jennifer asked. "Not right now." Jennifer left without acknowledging Ryan's presence. He wondered how much of the company already considered him guilty. How many people had already decided his fate? Isabella spread Evan's file across her desk and started reading. Ryan watched her face, trying to decipher what she was finding. Martin stood by the window, arms crossed, looking out at the snow. Chloe had climbed back onto the couch and was drawing again. This time, a picture of Isabella's office, complete with the desk and the big windows and tiny stick figures that were probably them. "This is interesting," Isabella said after several minutes. "Evan's been passed over for advancement 4 times in the last 3 years. Each time, the position went to someone younger with less seniority." "That's not unusual in tech," Martin said. "Seniority doesn't always mean better skills." "True, but look at this." Isabella turned the file so Martin could see. He filed a grievance 18 months ago claiming age discrimination. HR investigated and found no evidence, but the complaint is in his record. Who got the job he wanted that time? Isabella checked the dates. Marcus Chen. Ryan felt sick. "Marcus is 28, 10 years younger than me, 16 years younger than Evan. And you turned down a promotion that would have put you above Evan in the chain of command," Isabella said, "even though you're also younger than him." The pattern was becoming clear. Evan saw himself being overlooked by younger employees who didn't respect seniority, who got opportunities he felt entitled to. Every time it happened, the resentment grew. "But why frame me specifically?" Ryan asked. "If he's angry at the whole system, why target me?" "Because you're vulnerable," Isabella said bluntly. "Single parent, no political capital, no allies in management. You turned down the promotion everyone knew you deserved, which made you look weak. And when you brought your daughter to work during the storm, you gave him the perfect opportunity." Martin nodded slowly. If Evan wanted to sabotage the company and blame someone else, Ryan was the ideal scapegoat. especially with a 6-year-old daughter in the building creating a ready-made distraction. That's monstrous, Ryan said. That's calculated. Isabella closed the file. The question is whether we can prove it. She looked at Martin. I want you to do something for me. Don't tell anyone about this conversation. Not HR, not legal, not anyone. Just quietly pull every piece of data we have on Evan's activities Friday afternoon. Where he was, what computers he accessed, every keystroke if you can find it. That's going to take some time. You have until tomorrow morning. Martin picked up his portfolio. And what are you going to do? I'm going to have a conversation with Evan Reed. She checked her watch. He should be at his desk right now. Isabella, if he's dangerous, he's a middle-aged technician with a grudge, not a violent criminal. I'll be fine. Martin looked like he wanted to argue, but knew better. He nodded and left, closing the door quietly behind him. Ryan stood up. What should I do? Stay here. Keep your daughter comfortable. I'll be back in 20 minutes. I should come with you. If he did this to me, I deserve to... No. Isabella's voice was firm. If Evan sees you, he'll know we're investigating him. Right now, he thinks he won. We need to keep it that way until we have solid evidence. She grabbed her phone and headed for the door, then paused. Ryan, your daughter's drawing just saved your career, maybe your life. Make sure you tell her that someday. Then she was gone. Ryan stood alone in the massive office, with Chloe humming quietly on the couch. Through the window, Chicago sprawled below them, indifferent and cold. Daddy? Chloe looked up from her drawing. Is that lady going to help us? I think so, baby. She's nice. She looks at my pictures like they're real art. Ryan sat down beside her and pulled her into a hug. She was so small, so trusting. She had no idea how close they'd come to losing everything. They are real art, he said into her hair. Even Mr. Whiskers? Especially Mr. Whiskers. 23 minutes later, Isabella returned. Her expression was unreadable, but there was something sharp in her eyes. Something dangerous. Well? Ryan asked. Isabella sat down at her desk and pulled up something on her computer. Evan Reed is either the best actor I've ever met, or he genuinely believes he's untouchable. What did you say to him? I asked him to walk me through his Friday afternoon. Told him we were reviewing everyone's activities as part of the standard post-incident analysis. He was very cooperative. And? He claims he was at his desk from 2:30 to 3, working on routine maintenance. Says he saw the network go down and immediately started trying to diagnose the problem. Very helpful. Very concerned. But the badge logs show he entered the IT area at 2:39. I mentioned that. He said the logs must be wrong because he definitely arrived earlier. When I pressed him on it, he got defensive, said the badge readers malfunction sometimes during power fluctuations. Ryan leaned forward. Did you ask him about my computer? Indirectly, I asked if he noticed anyone else in the area that afternoon. He said no, he was focused on his work. Didn't see Ryan, didn't see anyone else from IT. But Ryan's desk is right across from his. Exactly. Which means either Evan is lying about being there earlier, or he's lying about not seeing anyone. Either way, he's lying. Isabella pulled up a new screen. While I was talking to him, I had our email admin pull his correspondence history. Look at this. She turned the monitor. An email thread from 3 weeks ago. Evan had sent a message to someone at a competing tech firm asking about job openings. The response was polite but lukewarm. They weren't hiring senior technicians at the moment. He was looking for another job, Ryan said. Not just looking, he sent out 7 applications in the last month, all rejected. One company told him his skills were outdated. Another said they were looking for someone who could grow with the company, which is code for someone younger. Isabella scrolled further. And then 2 weeks ago, he stopped applying. Why? I don't know, but I intend to find out. She picked up her phone again, but before she could dial, it rang. Martin's name on the screen. Talk to me, Isabella said. Ryan couldn't hear Martin's side of the conversation, but he watched Isabella's face change. The sharp intelligence in her eyes crystallized into something harder. You're certain? She said. No question? A pause. Send it to my secure email. All of it. And Martin, don't discuss this with anyone until I say otherwise. She hung up and looked at Ryan. We have him. What did Martin find? Evan's workstation accessed the network drive where the attack script was stored at 1:52 p.m. Friday afternoon, 5 minutes after you logged into your computer. Ryan's heart hammered. He copied it while I was there? Better than that. Martin pulled the file metadata. The script was created on Evan's home computer 3 days earlier. He brought it in on a flash drive, uploaded it to a hidden directory, then copied it to your machine while you were logged in. How did he get access to my computer? He didn't need to. He used a remote access tool that piggybacks on active sessions. Basically, while you were logged in and working, Evan opened a second connection to your machine from his own workstation. Your system thought it was you the whole time. Isabella pulled up a technical diagram that meant nothing to Ryan, but the implications were clear. He set it up during your 147 session, she continued, installed the Keep Alive script so your computer wouldn't lock, then waited until you were safely in the break room with Chloe before executing the attack remotely through your credentials. Can you prove all of this? Martin has the server logs, the file timestamps, the network traffic. It's all there. Evan made one critical mistake. He assumed no one would look past the obvious evidence pointing at you. Ryan felt something enormous shifting inside him. Relief, maybe. Or fury. Or both at once. Crashing together like waves. What happens now? Now I call legal and have them prepare termination papers. Then I call the police, because what Evan did isn't just grounds for firing. It's computer fraud, corporate sabotage, and probably half a dozen other crimes I'm not qualified to name. She stood up, her phone already in hand. But first, I'm going to do something I should have done yesterday instead of letting HR handle it. I'm going to tell everyone in this company that we made a catastrophic mistake, that we accused an innocent employee of a crime he didn't commit, and that we're going to make it right. Ryan opened his mouth to respond, but Isabella was already dialing. Lily, I need you to set up an emergency all-staff meeting for 4 p.m. today. Everyone. I don't care if they're working from home or on vacation. If they work for Virex, they need to be on that call. She hung up and looked at Ryan. You don't have to be there if you don't want to. This is going to be uncomfortable. I want to be there. Then you will be. With your daughter, if necessary. Let everyone see what we almost destroyed. The next 3 hours passed in a blur. Martin arrived with a forensic report that read like a thriller novel, detailed technical evidence showing exactly how Evan had orchestrated the attack. Legal got involved, bringing 2 attorneys who asked Ryan the same questions he'd already answered a dozen times. Through it all, Chloe colored peacefully on the couch, occasionally asking for snacks or bathroom breaks, but otherwise content in her own world. Isabella's assistant brought her juice boxes and crackers, treating her like a visiting dignitary rather than an inconvenience. At 3:45, Isabella's office started filling with people. Martin and his security team, Jennifer from HR, looking pale and sick. Thomas Brennan, the attorney who'd been so certain of Ryan's guilt that morning, now shuffling papers and avoiding eye contact. We have 17 minutes, Isabella said. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to address the entire company and explain what we've discovered. Then I'm going to announce Evan's immediate termination and the involvement of law enforcement. After that, I'm going to personally apologize to Ryan and reinstate him with full back pay and benefits. Should we wait until after Evan is in custody? Jennifer asked. If he hears this announcement, he's already in custody. Martin had Chicago PD pick him up 20 minutes ago. Everyone turned to Martin, who nodded. They're holding him for questioning. Once they see our evidence, formal charges will follow. Did he confess? Ryan asked. Not yet, but they found the flash drive in his desk drawer, the one with the original attack script. He didn't even bother to destroy it. Isabella checked her watch. Positions, everyone. We're going live in 10 minutes. The all-staff video call assembled quickly. Isabella's assistant set up a camera facing her desk. Ryan was positioned slightly to the side, visible but not central. Chloe remained on the couch, mostly out of frame, still drawing. At exactly 4 p.m., Isabella's face appeared on screens across the entire company. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining on short notice. I'm going to be direct because you deserve the truth without corporate spin. She paused, her expression grave. On Friday afternoon, our network suffered a catastrophic attack that destroyed critical data and cost this company millions of dollars. In the immediate aftermath, we identified Ryan Mercer as the perpetrator based on digital evidence that appeared conclusive. We terminated his employment, destroyed his reputation, and treated him like a criminal. Ryan could see the faces on the monitor, hundreds of employees, all watching silently. We were wrong. Isabella let those words hang in the air. Ryan Mercer did not sabotage our systems. He was framed by another employee who used sophisticated technical methods to make it appear Ryan was responsible. This employee has now been arrested and is facing criminal charges. She gestured to Ryan, bringing him into frame. Ryan is here with me today, along with his 6-year-old daughter, who inadvertently provided the key evidence that proved his innocence. A child's drawing with a timestamp that couldn't be faked or manipulated. Something no corporate system could have caught because we weren't looking for the truth. We were looking for the convenient answer. Someone in the video call typed a question in the chat. Isabella glanced at it. You're asking who framed him? Evan Reed, senior technician, 7 years with this company. He executed the attack remotely using Ryan's credentials while Ryan was in the break room with his daughter during the school closure. The chat exploded. Questions, shock, disbelief. I understand you have questions, Isabella continued. But right now what matters is this. We failed Ryan Mercer. As his employer, as his colleagues, as an organization that claims to value integrity. We rushed to judgment. We believed the easy explanation instead of doing the hard work of finding the truth. She leaned closer to the camera. Some of you saw Ryan in the building yesterday and avoided him. Some of you whispered about him. Some of you decided he was guilty based on rumors and assumptions. I want you to think about that. Think about how quickly we turn on each other when it's convenient. The silence on the call was absolute. Effective immediately, Ryan Mercer is reinstated with full back pay, restored benefits, and a formal apology from this company. Additionally, we're reviewing our investigation protocols to ensure this never happens again. Isabella straightened. One more thing. If anyone has a problem with Ryan returning to work, you're welcome to discuss it with me personally. My door is always open. But understand this. Ryan has more integrity in his little finger than most of us show in our entire careers. He endured being wrongly accused, publicly humiliated, and financially devastated without compromising his values or his responsibility to his daughter. If we're half as strong as him, we'll be lucky. She ended the call. The office fell quiet. No one moved. No one spoke. Finally, Jennifer Park stood up. Ryan, I owe you an apology. I didn't do my job. I should have investigated more thoroughly before making any decisions. We all should have, Thomas Brennan added quietly. Ryan didn't know what to say. These were the same people who'd fired him with clinical efficiency less than 36 hours ago. Now they stood in Isabella's office looking ashamed and small. I just want my job back, he said finally. I just want to take care of my daughter. Isabella nodded. You'll have it. Starting tomorrow if you're ready. Take tonight to think about whether you want to return to your previous position or if you'd prefer something different. Different how? I'll explain tomorrow. For now, go home. Be with your daughter. Try to get some rest. Ryan gathered Chloe's drawings and her backpack. She was half asleep on the couch, worn out by the long day. He picked her up carefully, feeling her arms wrap automatically around his neck. Thank you, he said to Isabella. Don't thank me. I should have prevented this from happening in the first place. You fixed it. That counts for something. Isabella walked them to the elevator. As the doors opened, she said quietly, Ryan, you're going to want to keep that drawing, the one with the timestamp, frame it or something. That picture saved your life. The elevator descended through the glowing tower. Through the glass walls, Ryan could see the city spreading out below. Snow still covered everything, but it looked different now. Less oppressive. Less like the world was ending. Chloe stirred against his shoulder. Are we going home, Daddy? Yeah, baby. We're going home. Did Ms. Isabella fix everything? Ryan thought about that question. About the career that had been destroyed and restored in less than 48 hours. About the man who'd tried to ruin him now sitting in a police station. About the drawing of an imaginary orange cat that had proven the truth. Yeah, he said. I think she did. The apartment felt different when they got home that night. Same cracked ceiling in the living room, same worn carpet that needed replacing, same refrigerator that hummed too loud. But something had shifted. The air felt lighter, like a pressure valve had finally released. Ryan made spaghetti for dinner while Chloe sat at the kitchen table arranging her crayons by color. She was meticulous about it, reds with reds, blues with blues, occasionally stopping to examine one that didn't quite fit anywhere. This one's confused, she announced, holding up a crayon that was somewhere between purple and brown. Yeah? What's it confused about? Whether it's supposed to be a plum or a tree. Ryan smiled despite everything. Maybe it can be both. That's not how colors work, Daddy. His phone buzzed. Marcus Chen. Dude. Dude! Just got out of the meeting. What the actual hell happened? Ryan stirred the pasta sauce, watching it bubble. He'd have to tell Marcus everything eventually, but right now he just wanted one quiet evening before diving back into the chaos. Long story. I'll explain tomorrow. Isabella said Evan framed you. Evan Reed. That guy barely knows how to reset his own password. Apparently he knew more than we had thought. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I'm buying you a beer. Multiple beers. A whole brewery if necessary. Tomorrow. Tonight I just want to be with Chloe. Fair. But Ryan? I'm sorry, man. I should have known you didn't do it. Should have said something. Ryan stared at that message. Marcus had been his friend for 3 years. They'd worked late nights together, grabbed lunch, complained about management, and when the accusations came down, Marcus had gone silent like everyone else. It's okay, Ryan typed, even though it wasn't, not completely. It's not, but I'll make it up to you. Ryan pocketed the phone and drained the pasta. Chloe had moved on from organizing crayons to drawing another picture, this one of their apartment building with exaggerated windows. Is that us? Ryan asked, pointing to 2 stick figures in one window. Yep, that's you and that's me and that's Mr. Whiskers. We still don't have a cat, baby. I know, but we should. They ate dinner on the couch watching a cartoon about talking trains. Chloe fell asleep before the episode ended, tomato sauce still on her chin. Ryan carried her to bed, tucked her in with the stuffed elephant, and stood in the doorway watching her breathe. She had no idea what she'd done. No concept that her simple drawing with its careful timestamp had unraveled someone's entire plan. She'd just been a kid coloring while her dad worked, writing down the time because her teacher had been drilling numbers all semester. Ryan pulled out his phone and took a picture of her sleeping. Then he went to the living room and spread out all her drawings from Friday on the coffee table. The snowstorm, the building, the cats. And there it was. The orange blob labeled Mr. Whiskers sitting by a window with 2:15 p.m. written in wobbly numbers in the corner. He took a picture of that too. Sleep didn't come easy that night. Ryan lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through everything that had happened. The firing, the accusations, the humiliation of sitting in that conference room while lawyers laid out evidence against him, the terror of knowing he might never work in IT again, that his career was over before he turned 33. And then Isabella Laurent, showing up like some kind of corporate avenging angel, refusing to accept the easy answers. He still didn't fully understand why she'd helped him. Sure, she talked about truth and integrity, but CEOs didn't usually get personally involved in employee terminations. They had entire departments to handle that kind of thing. Maybe she saw something in the situation that others missed, or maybe she just couldn't stomach the idea of destroying someone's life without being certain. Whatever the reason, Ryan owed her everything. His alarm went off at 6:30. He'd barely slept 3 hours, but his mind was already racing. Today, he'd go back to Virex as an employee instead of an accused criminal. Today, he'd face the coworkers who'd avoided his eyes and the managers who'd believed the worst about him. Chloe was already awake when he went to check on her, sitting cross-legged on her bed with a book about dinosaurs. Did you know T-Rex arms were actually really strong even though they were small? She said instead of good morning. I did not know that. It's true. The book says so. Ryan made breakfast while Chloe listed dinosaur facts. Stegosaurus had a brain the size of a walnut. Velociraptors were actually turkey-sized. Triceratops might have traveled in herds. The ordinary rhythm of it helped. Toast and orange juice and a 6-year-old's endless questions about prehistoric creatures. Normal life, continuing despite everything. He dropped Chloe at school and drove to Virex with his stomach in knots. The parking garage looked the same as always. The glass tower reflected morning sun and scattered clouds. Nothing had changed externally, but Ryan felt like he was entering a completely different building than the one he'd been fired from. His badge worked. That small thing, the magnetic lock clicking open, the green light, the soft beep of acceptance, hit him harder than he expected. The lobby was busy with the morning rush, people swiping badges, grabbing coffee from the cart near the elevators, checking phones while they waited. Ryan recognized most of them. A woman from accounting who always smiled. A developer who'd once asked for help recovering deleted files. A manager whose name he couldn't remember but whose face was familiar. They all saw him, and they all looked away. Not aggressively, not with hostility, just quick glances followed by sudden interest in phones or shoes or the elevator display. The polite pretense of not noticing him. Ryan got it. They were embarrassed, ashamed of how quickly they'd believed the accusations. But their embarrassment felt like its own kind of isolation. The elevator ride to the third floor felt endless. When the doors opened, Marcus was waiting. "Hey!" Marcus looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept either. "Wasn't sure if you'd actually come back today. Isabella said I could start whenever I was ready. And you're ready after one night? I can't afford not to be." Marcus nodded. They'd had conversations about money before, about the financial tightrope of single parenthood, about how one missed paycheck could cascade into disaster. "Your desk is exactly how you left it," Marcus said as they walked. "Nobody touched anything after Friday." The IT department was quieter than usual. A few people working at their stations, but none of the normal chatter and collaboration. Everyone seemed focused on their screens with unusual intensity. Ryan's desk sat in the corner where it had always been. 2 monitors, ergonomic keyboard he'd bought himself. A coffee mug Chloe had decorated with stickers. Everything exactly as he'd left it Friday afternoon when his world fell apart. Except there was an envelope on his keyboard. Cream-colored, expensive paper, his name written in precise handwriting. "That came this morning," Marcus said, "from Isabella's office." Ryan opened it. A handwritten note on Virex letterhead. "Ryan, please come to my office at 10 a.m. We need to discuss your future here. IL." He checked his watch. 45 minutes. "What do you think she wants?" Marcus asked. "No idea. Maybe she's going to promote you, like compensation for what happened. Or maybe she's going to explain why I should stay when everyone here treated me like a criminal." Marcus winced. "We didn't." "You did. You all did." "Yeah." Marcus sat on the edge of Ryan's desk. "We did. And I don't have a good excuse except that it was easier to believe you'd screwed up than to question what we were being told." "That's a terrible excuse." "I know." They sat in uncomfortable silence until Marcus finally spoke again. "Evan's arraignment is this afternoon. Did you know?" Ryan hadn't. "What are they charging him with?" "Computer fraud, corporate sabotage, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, plus whatever civil suits Virex decides to file. Martin said he could be looking at 10 years. 10 years? Ryan tried to imagine Evan Reed, middle-aged, balding, perpetually annoyed Evan Reed sitting in a prison cell for a decade. He should have felt satisfaction, maybe even vindication. Instead, he just felt tired. "He really hated me that much?" Ryan said quietly. "I don't think it was about you specifically. I think you were just convenient." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "No, but it's the truth." At 9:55, Ryan headed to the executive floor. The same assistant with purple-streaked hair greeted him warmly, like they were old friends despite having met once. "Go right in. She's expecting you." Isabella's office looked different in morning light. Less dramatic, more businesslike. She sat at her desk reviewing something on her tablet, wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than Ryan's monthly rent. "Ryan, sit down." He sat in one of the chairs facing her desk. Through the windows behind her, Lake Michigan stretched gray and choppy under cloudy skies. Isabella set down her tablet and looked at him directly. "How was your first morning back?" "Weird. Everyone's avoiding me." "That will pass." Guilt makes people awkward. "Does it? Or will they just decide it's easier to keep avoiding me than to deal with their guilt?" Isabella smiled slightly. "Fair question, which is part of why I wanted to talk to you. Your return to the IT department isn't going to be simple. You're a living reminder of how badly we failed. Some people will eventually move past it, but others won't." "So what am I supposed to do? Pretend nothing happened?" "No, I'm suggesting something different." Isabella pulled up a file on her computer. "I've been reviewing the infrastructure division, the team responsible for maintaining our core systems, security protocols, disaster recovery. Right now, it's overseen by David Langston, who's been with the company for 12 years. I know David. He's good at his job." "He is. He's also retiring in 6 months, and I need someone to replace him." Ryan stared at her. "You're not suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting. I'm offering. Head of Infrastructure Division, direct report to me. 40% salary increase, full benefits, stock options, and a team of 8 people you'll manage." The numbers didn't make sense. Ryan was a technician, A good one, but still just someone who fixed servers and responded to tickets. He wasn't management material. Why me? Because you have something most managers never develop: the ability to maintain your integrity under extreme pressure. You were accused of a crime you didn't commit, fired without proper investigation, publicly humiliated. And you didn't lash out. You didn't burn bridges. You just kept insisting on the truth. I didn't have much choice. Everyone has a choice. You could have hired a lawyer and gone scorched earth on this company. You could have sold your story to the press and destroyed our reputation. You could have done 100 things to make us pay for what we did to you. I thought about it, but you didn't do it because you understood that revenge wouldn't help your daughter. It wouldn't get you your job back. It would just add more chaos to an already chaotic situation. Isabella stood and walked to the window. I've built 3 companies in my career. You know what the hardest part is? Finding people who make good decisions when everything's falling apart. Most people freeze or panic or lash out, but you stayed calm. You stayed focused on what mattered. That's not something I can teach. Ryan thought about Friday afternoon, sitting in the break room with Chloe while alarms went off and people shouted. The long weekend of uncertainty. The meeting where lawyers laid out evidence against him. None of it had felt like staying calm. It had felt like drowning in slow motion. I was terrified, he admitted. I'm sure you were. But terror and panic aren't the same thing. Terror is a feeling. Panic is a choice. She turned back to face him. I need someone running infrastructure who understands what's at stake when systems fail. Who knows that behind every server crash and network outage are real people whose lives depend on things working correctly? You lived that. You understand it in a way David Langston never will. I don't have management experience. You've been managing your daughter's life as a single parent for 4 years. Trust me, coordinating a team of 8 IT professionals is easier than raising a 6-year-old alone. Despite everything, Ryan almost laughed. I need to think about it, he said. Take until Monday. But Ryan, this isn't charity. I don't do charity. This is me recognizing talent and putting it where it'll do the most good for the company. Ryan left her office with his head spinning. He'd come to work expecting to quietly return to his old job, keep his head down, rebuild his reputation slowly. Instead, he was being offered a position that would completely change his career trajectory. The elevator stopped on the 14th floor, and Jennifer Park got on. She saw Ryan and immediately looked like she wanted to get off again, but the doors had already closed. Ryan, I'm glad I ran into you. Are you? She deserved that. To her credit, she didn't flinch. I owe you more than an apology, she said. I owe you an explanation. I don't need an explanation. You had evidence that looked convincing and you acted on it. That's your job. My job is to investigate thoroughly before ruining someone's career. I didn't do that. I took the easy path. The elevator descended in silence for a few floors. Can I ask you something? Jennifer said. How are you not furious right now? Who says I'm not? You seem calm. Ryan thought about Chloe at school, probably telling her classmates about the nice lady who looked at her drawings, about the apartment where they'd be sleeping safely tonight, about all the things that mattered more than anger. Being furious won't change what happened, he said. It won't get me those 2 days back. It won't undo the humiliation. So I can either stay angry about the past or focus on making sure the future's better. That's a remarkably mature perspective. It's a remarkably exhausted perspective. I don't have the energy to stay angry. The elevator reached the ground floor. Jennifer stepped out, then turned back. For what it's worth, I'm restructuring our termination protocols, adding mandatory review periods and independent investigations. What happened to you won't happen to anyone else. Good. She walked away and Ryan stood watching the lobby traffic flow around him. People coming and going, absorbed in their own dramas and deadlines. To most of them, he was just another employee. They didn't know his story, didn't care about his near destruction and unlikely salvation. Maybe that was for the best. He grabbed coffee from the lobby cart and headed back upstairs. The IT department was busier now, morning meetings wrapping up, people settling into their work rhythms. Ryan sat at his desk and pulled up his email. 300 unread messages. Most of them automated notifications and system alerts from Friday's crash. But buried in there were about 20 from coworkers. Subject lines like sorry and glad you're back and we messed up. Ryan skimmed through them. Apologies of varying sincerity. explanations about being misled by management, offers to grab lunch or coffee, clearly motivated by guilt more than genuine friendship. He deleted most of them without responding. One email stood out, though. From David Langston. Ryan, Isabella told me she's offering you my position. I want you to know I support that decision completely. You've always been one of our best technicians, but more importantly, you give a damn about doing things right. That's rare. If you take the job, I'll make sure the transition is as smooth as possible. If you decide to walk away from Virex entirely, I'll understand that too and provide whatever references you need. David. Ryan read it twice. David was old school IT, the kind of guy who'd started in the era of punch cards and mainframes. He'd always been fair but distant, professional to a fault. This email felt genuinely kind. Ryan hit reply. David, thank you. Still processing everything, but I appreciate your support. Ryan. The morning crawled past. Ryan worked on routine maintenance tickets, helping users who'd locked themselves out of accounts or couldn't figure out why their monitors weren't displaying correctly. Simple problems with simple solutions. The kind of work that required technical knowledge, but not much emotional energy. Around noon, Marcus appeared at his desk with 2 sandwiches. Lunch. You're eating with me whether you want to or not. They went to a small park 2 blocks from the Virex Tower. Snow still covered the benches, so they stood near a fountain that had been drained for winter, eating turkey sandwiches and not talking about anything important. Did Isabella really offer you Langston's job? Marcus asked eventually. How'd you know about that? Rumors spread fast, especially rumors about the guy who got screwed over on Friday and might become our boss by Monday. I haven't decided yet. What's to decide? It's a huge promotion. It's also a huge target on my back. Half the department probably thinks I don't deserve it, that it's just Isabella trying to make up for what happened. Marcus crumpled his sandwich wrapper. Screw what they think. You've been doing senior-level work for years while taking junior-level pay because you wouldn't take promotions that interfered with raising Chloe. Everyone knows that. Knowing it and accepting it are different things. So make them accept it. Come in, do the job better than anyone expected, prove you earned it. Ryan watched pigeons fighting over someone's discarded French fries near the fountain. What if I can't? What if I take the promotion and fail and then I'm back to square one, except now I've also proven I was never qualified in the first place? Then you fail. But at least you tried. At least you didn't let Evan Reed's bullshit define the rest of your career. They walked back to the office in silence. The afternoon passed like the morning. Quiet work, awkward glances, the persistent feeling of being the subject of whispered conversations. At 3 o'clock, Martin Graves stopped by Ryan's desk. Got a minute? They went to one of the small conference rooms. Martin closed the door and pulled up something on his tablet. Evan's arraignment was at 1. He pled not guilty. Of course he did. His attorney is claiming the evidence was obtained improperly, that we violated his privacy by pulling his workstation logs without consent. Ryan felt his stomach drop. Can they make that stick? Doubtful. Corporate networks aren't private property. Employees sign acknowledgement forms saying their activity can be monitored, but it might delay the trial. How long? Months, maybe. Prosecutor says it's a strong case, but strong cases still have to go through the system. Martin set down the tablet. There's something else. During the arraignment, Evan's lawyer made a statement to the press, said his client is being scapegoated by a company trying to cover up its own security failures. That's ridiculous. It's also effective. Chicago Tribune wants to interview you, so does Channel 7 News. They're spinning this as a story about corporate corruption and wrongful accusations. But I was the one wrongfully accused. I know, but Evan's lawyer is good at his job. He's flipping the narrative. Ryan rubbed his eyes. He thought the worst was over. That being proven innocent meant the story ended, but apparently the story was just getting started. What should I do? Isabella says it's your call. You can ignore the press, which might make it look like we're hiding something, or you can give an interview and tell your side of it. I have a 6-year-old daughter who doesn't need to see her father on the news. Fair point, but she also doesn't need to grow up thinking her dad let someone else control his story. Martin stood to leave, then paused at the door. For whatever it's worth, Ryan, I'm sorry I didn't push harder on Friday. I saw holes in the investigation, but I let management pressure me into going along with the easy answer. Everyone keeps apologizing, because everyone screwed up. But sorry doesn't pay your bills or undo the damage. So I'm going to make sure the case against Evan is airtight. That's the only apology that actually matters. After Martin left, Ryan sat alone in the conference room staring at nothing. The investigation, the arrest, the arraignment, it all felt like it was happening to someone else. Like he was watching a movie about his own life instead of living it. His phone buzzed. Chloe's school. His heart jumped. She was supposed to be in class for another hour. They only called if something was wrong. Mr. Mercer, this is Principal Hayes. Everything's fine, but we need you to come pick up Chloe. What happened? Is she hurt? No, nothing like that. But there was an incident at lunch that upset her, and she's asked to go home. Ryan was already grabbing his coat. I'll be there in 15 minutes. He made it in 12, breaking probably half a dozen traffic laws. The school receptionist directed him to the principal's office, where Chloe sat in an oversized chair, her legs not quite reaching the floor, tears streaked down her face. Baby, what happened? She looked up at him with those big brown eyes and started crying harder. Ryan knelt in front of her, checking for visible injuries. No bruises, no cuts, nothing obviously wrong. Principal Hayes, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and gray hair, gestured to the chairs across from her desk. Please sit. Chloe, do you want to tell your dad what happened, or should I? Chloe shook her head and buried her face against Ryan's shoulder. There was an incident in the cafeteria, Principal Hayes explained. Some of the older children saw a news story about the Virex situation, about your termination and subsequent reinstatement. They started asking Chloe questions about it at lunch. Ryan's blood ran cold. What kind of questions? Whether her father was a criminal, whether he'd gone to jail. One child apparently said you'd stolen money from your job. That's not what happened. I know. I've seen the news coverage. But children don't always process these things with nuance. They hear arrested and computer crime, and they fill in the blanks with whatever makes sense to them. Ryan looked at Chloe, still pressed against his shoulder. She was so small, 6 years old, trying to make sense of adult problems she shouldn't have to think about. Did you explain to the other children what actually happened? We addressed it with the class, yes, but the damage was done. Chloe became very upset and asked to call you. Ryan signed the early dismissal form and carried Chloe to the car. She didn't say anything during the drive home, just stared out the window at the passing buildings. Inside the apartment, Ryan made hot chocolate, while Chloe sat at the kitchen table arranging and rearranging her crayon collection. When he set the mug in front of her, she finally spoke. Emma said you went to jail. I didn't go to jail, baby. I never did anything wrong. But she said it was on the news, that you got arrested. Ryan sat down across from her. The man who got arrested is named Evan. He's the one who did the bad thing. I was the one who got blamed for it at first, but then Ms. Isabella figured out the truth. Why did he blame you? How do you explain jealousy and resentment and corporate sabotage to a 6-year-old? Sometimes people make bad choices when they're angry, Ryan said carefully. Evan was angry about his job, and he made a very bad choice that hurt a lot of people. Is he going to jail? Probably. What he did was against the law. Chloe stirred her hot chocolate, watching the marshmallows swirl. I don't want to go back to school. You have to go to school, sweetheart. But everyone thinks you're bad. Not everyone. And the people who matter know the truth. Emma matters. She's my friend. Was Emma the one saying those things? Chloe nodded, and Ryan felt something twist in his chest. Emma Rodriguez had been Chloe's best friend since preschool. They had play dates every other weekend. Emma's mom had sent Ryan a casserole after Sarah died. I'll talk to Emma's mom, Ryan said. I'll explain what really happened. She won't believe you. Why not? Because Emma said her mom said you can't trust the news, but you also can't trust people who say the news is lying. Ryan closed his eyes. This was what Martin had warned him about. The narrative spinning out of control, affecting not just him, but Chloe too. His phone rang. Isabella Laurent. I need to call you back, Ryan said. Is everything all right? My daughter got harassed at school because of the news coverage about Virex. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, I'm sending a car to pick you up, both of you. We're going to fix this right now. Isabella, 20 minutes. Be ready. She hung up before he could argue. True to her word, a black sedan pulled up exactly 20 minutes later. The driver was professional and quiet, opening doors and helping Chloe into the back seat like she was royalty. They drove to a building Ryan didn't recognize in downtown Chicago. Modern glass and steel, the kind of place that screamed expensive. The driver led them to a penthouse conference room where Isabella waited with two other people, a man in a crisp suit and a woman with a camera bag. Ryan, Chloe, this is Marcus Whitfield from our communications team, and Dana Chen, a photographer. We're going to tell your story properly. I don't want Chloe involved in this. She already is involved. Every child at her school saw the news coverage. Every parent is talking about it. We can either let Evan's lawyer control the narrative, or we can show people the truth. Ryan looked at Chloe, who was examining the camera equipment with cautious interest. What exactly are you proposing? An interview. You, me, and Chloe. We'll explain what actually happened, show the drawing that proved your innocence, talk about how corporate systems failed but individual integrity prevailed. Dana will photograph it, Marcus will write it up, and we'll place it with every major outlet in Chicago. That sounds like using my daughter for publicity. Isabella's expression didn't change. It is, but it's also protecting her future. Right now, she's the daughter of an accused criminal. After this interview, she'll be the daughter of a hero who stood up to injustice. Which would you prefer? Ryan hated that she was right. Hated that his daughter had become collateral damage in someone else's crime. Hated that the only way to protect her was to put her in front of cameras. Okay, he said, but if Chloe gets uncomfortable at any point, we stop. No questions asked. Agreed. They set up in a corner of the conference room with natural light from the windows. Dana positioned them on a couch, Isabella in the middle, Ryan and Chloe on either side. Chloe held her drawing, the one with the timestamp and the orange cat. Marcus asked questions while Dana photographed. How did Ryan discover he'd been framed? What was it like being accused? How did Chloe's drawing prove his innocence? Ryan answered carefully, editing out the parts that would confuse or upset Chloe. Isabella spoke about corporate responsibility and the importance of seeking truth over convenience. And Chloe, when asked about her drawing, simply said, I always write the time because my teacher says it's important to be specific. The whole interview took 90 minutes. By the end, Chloe was getting restless, and Ryan was emotionally exhausted. Dana took a few final shots, the three of them looking at the drawing together, Ryan and Chloe alone, Isabella holding the picture that had saved his career. This will run tomorrow, Marcus said. Print and online. We're also doing a segment with Channel 7 using these photos and your quotes. How long until it spreads? By tomorrow afternoon, everyone in Chicago will know the real story. The car took them home. Ryan made dinner while Chloe told him about the big camera and how Ms. Isabella had let her look through the viewfinder. Normal kid excitement about something new and interesting. She didn't seem to realize she'd just become part of a news story that would spread across the city. That night, after Chloe was asleep, Ryan sat on the couch with a beer he didn't drink and thought about everything that had changed in 1 week. Fired on Friday, vindicated on Monday, offered a promotion on Tuesday, interviewed for national news on Wednesday. His phone buzzed. A text from Emma's mother. Ryan, I saw the Tribune article that's going online tonight. I'm so sorry. Emma heard things from other parents, and I didn't correct her. We'll talk to her tonight, and she'll apologize to Chloe tomorrow. Ryan didn't respond. He was too tired to be gracious and too relieved to be angry. The article went live at midnight. Ryan read it on his phone, seeing his own words reflected back at him in clean, professional prose. The photos were striking, Chloe holding her drawing, the timestamp visible in her careful kindergarten handwriting. Isabella looking stern and protective, Ryan looking exhausted but determined. The headline read, A Child's Drawing and a CEO's Integrity, How Virex Systems Failed and Redeemed Its Employee. By morning, it was everywhere. Ryan's phone started ringing at 6:47 a.m. Unknown number. He let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, it rang again. Different number, also unknown. By the time he got Chloe up and dressed, he had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Some from reporters wanting follow-up interviews, others from people he hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly interested in reconnecting. A few from numbers he didn't recognize with messages like, "Stay strong," and "You're an inspiration." He ignored all of them and focused on making breakfast. Chloe seemed lighter this morning, humming while she poured cereal into her bowl with the intense concentration of someone defusing a bomb. Emma's mom texted me last night, Ryan said carefully. Emma wants to apologize to you today. Chloe stopped mid-pour. She does? Yeah, turns out she didn't understand what really happened. Her mom explained it to her. Oh. Chloe resumed pouring, overfilling the bowl slightly. Milk sloshed when she added it. Okay. You don't have to forgive her right away if you're still upset. I'm not upset anymore. She didn't know. Ryan wished he had half his daughter's capacity for letting things go. The drive to school was different than yesterday. Instead of dropping Chloe at the curb and driving away, Ryan parked and walked her inside. Principal Hayes met them in the hallway. Mr. Mercer, I read the Tribune article this morning. I want to apologize for not handling yesterday's situation better. We should have been more proactive in correcting the misinformation. You didn't know what was true and what wasn't. I should have asked before assuming. She crouched down to Chloe's level. And Chloe, I'm sorry you had a rough day yesterday. I've talked to all the teachers about making sure everyone understands what really happened with your dad. Chloe nodded seriously like this was an important business meeting. Emma was waiting by the classroom door, her mom standing behind her with an encouraging hand on her shoulder. When she saw Chloe, Emma's face crumpled. I'm sorry I said mean things about your dad. My mom says he's actually a hero and I was being stupid. You weren't stupid, Chloe said. You just didn't know. The two girls hugged with the dramatic intensity only 6-year-olds could manage, and then ran off to examine someone's new backpack like nothing had ever been wrong. Emma's mother approached Ryan with the careful expression of someone walking on eggshells. I owe you an apology too. I should have fact-checked before letting Emma repeat things she'd overheard. It's fine. Everything happened so fast. It's not fine. We've known each other for years. I should have trusted you. She paused. The casserole offer still stands, by the way, if you ever need anything. Ryan thanked her and left before the conversation could get more awkward. On the drive to Virex, he finally listened to one of the voicemails. A producer from a morning talk show in New York wanted him to fly out for an interview about workplace justice and corporate accountability. He deleted it. The Virex lobby was busier than usual, and Ryan quickly understood why. A news van was parked across the street, camera crews setting up on the sidewalk. Inside, security had been doubled. 2 guards stood by the entrance, checking badges with unusual scrutiny. Mr. Mercer. One of them nodded at Ryan with something like respect. Reporters have been trying to get in all morning. We're on orders not to let anyone through who isn't an employee. Thanks. The elevator was packed with coworkers who'd all clearly read the article. They made space for him without being asked, and nobody met his eyes directly. But the atmosphere felt different than yesterday. Less shame, more uncertainty about how to act. When Ryan reached the IT department, he found a small crowd gathered around his desk. Marcus was there, along with several other technicians, and even David Langston. They turned when he approached. Morning, Ryan said cautiously. We were just talking about the article, David said. Hell of a story. Yeah. Also hell of an indictment of how badly we handled this. David gestured to the others. We had a team meeting this morning before you got in. Unanimous decision. We owe you more than apologies, so we're implementing a new protocol. Any future termination in this department gets reviewed by at least 3 people before moving forward. No more snap judgments. Ryan didn't know what to say to that. It won't undo what happened to you, David continued, but maybe it'll prevent it from happening to someone else. Thanks, Ryan managed. The crowd dispersed slowly, people returning to their desks with backward glances. Marcus lingered. You're famous now, dude. Tribune, Channel 7, Sun Times. Pretty sure I saw your face on Reddit this morning. That's not a good thing. Depends on your perspective. At least now when people Google your name, they'll find the truth instead of speculation about criminal charges. Ryan's computer came to life as he logged in. His email inbox was worse than yesterday. Over 600 new messages, interview requests, speaking invitations, people offering legal advice for lawsuits he hadn't considered filing. One email stood out. From Evan Reed's personal account, sent at 3:22 a.m. The subject line was empty. Ryan almost deleted it without reading, but morbid curiosity got the better of him. You destroyed my life. I hope you're happy. That was it. 6 words from someone who tried to destroy Ryan first. Ryan stared at the message for a long time. He should forward it to Martin, add it to the evidence file, maybe even report it as harassment. Instead, he archived it and moved on. At 9:30, Isabella's assistant called. Ms. Laurent would like to see you when you have a moment. Ryan headed upstairs trying to ignore the stares from people who now recognized him from the news coverage. Isabella's office door was open. She was on the phone but waved him in. I understand your concerns, she was saying to whoever was on the other end, but the facts are the facts. We made a mistake, we corrected it, and we're being transparent about the process. If that makes some of our clients uncomfortable, they're welcome to take their business elsewhere. She hung up without saying goodbye. Board member, she explained to Ryan, worried the negative publicity will hurt our Q4 numbers. I told him I'm more worried about running a company with integrity than protecting our stock price. Is the publicity that bad? Depends who you ask. Some people think we're brave for admitting our mistakes. Others think we're incompetent for making them in the first place. Both are probably right. Isabella pulled up something on her tablet. I wanted to talk to you about the job offer. I know you said you needed until Monday to decide, but given everything that's happened this week, I thought you might want more time. Actually, I've made up my mind. That was quick. Ryan had been thinking about it all night, running through scenarios and possibilities. Taking the promotion meant staying at Virex, working alongside people who'd believed the worst about him. It meant managing a team that might resent him. It meant putting himself in a position where every decision would be scrutinized. But it also meant showing Chloe that you don't run away from hard situations, that you face them and prove yourself. I'll take the job, he said, but I have conditions. Isabella's eyebrow raised slightly. I'm listening. First, I want to pick my own team. If people don't want to work for me because they think I don't deserve the position, they can transfer to other departments. No hard feelings. Reasonable. What else? I want authority to implement new security protocols without having to run them past legal for approval. The attack happened because our systems were vulnerable. That can't happen again. Also reasonable. And I want Fridays off, or at least the flexibility to leave early if Chloe needs me. This job can't come at the cost of being her father. Isabella smiled. Done. Anything else? Ryan thought about it. Yeah, I want Evan's position eliminated. Not filled by someone else, just eliminated. We don't need it, and I don't want anyone sitting at his old desk thinking about what he did. That's not a condition. That's already done. I had facilities clear out his workspace yesterday. She stood and extended her hand. Welcome to leadership, Ryan. You start Monday. Between now and then, David will brief you on everything you need to know. Personnel files, ongoing projects, budget constraints. It's a lot of information, but I think you can handle it. Ryan shook her hand and, for the first time in a week, felt something like optimism. The rest of Thursday passed in a blur of transition meetings. David walked him through the infrastructure division's responsibilities, which were vast and complicated. Maintaining server farms, managing cloud migrations, coordinating with external vendors, disaster recovery planning. Ryan's head spun with information. Don't worry about memorizing everything now, David said during their third meeting. You'll learn it as you go. The important thing is understanding the big picture and knowing who to ask when you need details. How long did it take you to feel comfortable in this role? About 2 years. But you have an advantage I didn't. You actually understand the technical side. I came up through management. You came up through doing the work. Around 4 o'clock, Martin Graves stopped by David's office where they were reviewing security protocols. Sorry to interrupt. Ryan, you have a visitor downstairs, says it's important. Who? Evan Reed's wife. The room went cold. I'll come with you, David said, already standing. No, it's okay. I'll handle it. Ryan rode the elevator down with his heart hammering. What could Evan's wife possibly want? To yell at him for destroying her husband's career? To beg him to drop the charges? She was waiting in a small conference room near the lobby. Ryan recognized her from the one company picnic he'd attended years ago. Mid-40s, tired eyes, wearing a jacket that had seen better days. Her name was Patricia, he remembered. She'd brought potato salad. Mr. Mercer, thank you for seeing me. Ryan sat across from her, leaving the door open. What can I do for you? Patricia's hands were clasped tightly on the table, knuckles white. I wanted to apologize for what Evan did to you, for what he put you and your daughter through. This wasn't what Ryan expected. You're not responsible for his choices. I know, but I should have seen it coming. Should have noticed how angry he was getting, how obsessed he became with work politics and perceived slights. She paused. He changed over the past year, became bitter, resentful. I thought it was just stress, but it was more than that. Did you know what he was planning? No, I swear I didn't. I knew he was unhappy at work, but I never imagined he'd do something like this. Her voice cracked. We have 2 kids, teenagers. They're seeing their father on the news, accused of crimes. Their friends are asking questions. It's destroying them. Ryan thought about Chloe at school yesterday, being confronted by classmates about her criminal father. He understood what Patricia's children were going through. I'm sorry they're caught in the middle of this. They shouldn't be. None of you should be. Evan made his choices, and now everyone's paying for them. Patricia pulled an envelope from her purse. I wanted to give you this. It's not much, but it's something. Ryan took the envelope. Inside was a check for $5,000. I can't accept this. Please. Evan's lawyer is draining our savings, and I know the company didn't pay you while you were terminated. You have a daughter to take care of. Let me do this one thing that's actually right. Patricia, my husband tried to destroy your life. The least I can do is help you rebuild it. Ryan looked at the check, then at this woman who'd done nothing wrong except marry someone who'd made terrible choices. Keep it, he said gently. Use it for your kids. They're going to need support getting through this. Are you sure? I'm sure. Patricia left looking like she might cry. Ryan watched her go and wondered how many other invisible victims existed in situations like this. Families torn apart by one person's decisions, children paying for their parents' mistakes. He went back upstairs and tried to focus on work, but the encounter had shaken him. At 6 o'clock, he gave up and went to pick up Chloe from after-school care. She ran to him with a drawing she'd made during art time, a picture of their apartment building with exaggerated windows and a very orange cat sitting on the roof. Mr. Whiskers learned to climb, she announced. Did he now? Yep, he's very talented. They drove home through rush hour traffic that had somehow gotten worse with fresh snow. The radio played news updates, and Ryan caught fragments of stories about Virex and corporate accountability and a CEO who'd stood up for her employee. Chloe wasn't paying attention. She was drawing in her notebook, adding details to Mr. Whiskers' climbing adventure. At home, Ryan made spaghetti again because it was easy and Chloe liked it. While the pasta boiled, he checked his email one more time and found a message from David. Forgot to mention, there's a company-wide town hall next Wednesday. Isabella wants all department heads there. You're officially leadership now, so that includes you. Dress code is business casual. Don't stress about it. Just show up and look confident, even if you're terrified. Department head. Leadership. Town hall meetings. Ryan closed the laptop and focused on dinner. One day at a time. Friday morning brought more news coverage. The story had spread beyond Chicago now, picked up by national outlets. Ryan's face was on CNN, NBC, ABC. Morning show hosts discussed his case between segments about congressional hearings and celebrity scandals. Ryan tried to ignore it and focus on his last day as a regular technician. Next week he'd be management. This week he could still fix computers and respond to tickets and hide in the comfortable anonymity of routine work. Around 10 o'clock, Marcus appeared at his desk holding his phone. Dude, you need to see this. He turned the screen to show a Twitter thread. Someone had created fan art of Chloe's drawing, professional digital renderings of Mr. Whiskers, the orange cat sitting by a window with a timestamp. Hundreds of people had shared it with comments about truth and integrity and standing up to injustice. People are weird, Ryan said. People are inspired. You became a symbol. I don't want to be a symbol. I just want to do my job and take care of my daughter. Too late for that. You're officially a thing now. The morning passed with surprising normalcy, considering Ryan's face was being broadcast across the country. He helped a user recover deleted files, fixed a printer that had stopped communicating with the network, diagnosed a monitor issue that turned out to be a loose cable. Regular work. Simple problems with simple solutions. At lunch, David took him to a restaurant 2 blocks away, fancy enough to make Ryan uncomfortable, casual enough that he didn't feel completely out of place. This is where the leadership team usually eats, David explained. Figured you should get familiar with it before Monday. They ordered sandwiches and coffee. David spent the meal giving Ryan advice about managing people. The hardest part isn't the technical decisions, it's the personal ones. Someone's going to come to you with a family emergency and need time off. Someone else is going to want a promotion they don't deserve. You'll have to fire someone eventually, and that never gets easier. Encouraging. I'm being realistic. Management isn't about being liked. It's about making decisions that serve the company and your team, even when those decisions are hard. What if I make the wrong call? You will. Everyone does. The question is whether you learn from it or repeat it. After lunch, Ryan spent the afternoon in transition meetings, budget reviews, personnel evaluations, project timelines. His brain felt stuffed with information by the time 5 o'clock rolled around. He picked up Chloe and took her to the park despite the cold. She needed to burn off energy, and he needed to think about something other than work. Chloe built a snowman with rocks for eyes and sticks for arms. Ryan helped her find a carrot for the nose, an actual carrot he'd brought from home because he'd learned the first winter after Sarah died that you couldn't count on finding appropriate snowman materials at the park. "We should name him," Chloe said, patting snow onto the snowman's middle section. "What should we call him?" "Mr. Whiskers." "We can't name everything Mr. Whiskers." "Why not?" Ryan didn't have a good answer for that. They stayed until Chloe's fingers were too cold to keep building, then drove home as the sun set behind buildings and streetlights flickered on. That night, after Chloe was asleep, Ryan sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad and wrote down everything he wanted to accomplish in his new role. Better security protocols, improved disaster recovery systems, a team culture where people felt comfortable admitting mistakes instead of hiding them, and at the bottom of the list, in handwriting that looked suspiciously like his daughter's influence, make sure no one else gets blamed for something they didn't do. Saturday was quiet. No work calls, no meetings, no reporters camped outside his apartment, just Ryan and Chloe doing laundry and grocery shopping and watching cartoons. Normal life, continuing despite everything. Sunday afternoon, Isabella called. "I wanted to check in before Monday. Make sure you're ready." "As ready as I'll ever be." "You'll do fine. The team respects competence, and you've got that in spades. The rest you'll figure out." "Isabella, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you fight for me? You could have let HR handle everything, kept your distance, protected yourself, but you didn't. Why?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "My first job out of college, I worked for a tech startup in San Francisco. Small company, maybe 20 employees. The CTO was accused of stealing proprietary code from a competitor. Company fired him immediately. No investigation, just panic and legal concerns." "Was he guilty?" "No. Turned out the competitor had fabricated evidence to eliminate a rival. But by the time the truth came out, the CTO's reputation was destroyed. He couldn't find work in the industry. Last I heard, he was driving for a rideshare service." "That's awful." "It was preventable. If anyone had bothered to ask questions instead of assuming guilt, they would have seen the holes in the story. But they didn't. They took the easy path." Isabella's voice was quiet now. "I swore that if I ever had the power to prevent that kind of injustice, I would. When your case landed on my desk, I saw the same pattern. Easy answers, convenient scapegoat, everyone ready to move on without doing the hard work of finding truth." "So you did the hard work." "I did what should have been done in the first place. Nothing heroic about it." After they hung up, Ryan thought about all the invisible threads connecting people's lives. Someone's trauma becoming someone else's salvation. Past injustices preventing future ones. Monday morning arrived too fast. Ryan dressed in clothes he usually reserved for funerals and job interviews. Dark slacks, button-down shirt, a tie Chloe helped him pick out because it had tiny robots on it. "You look fancy, Daddy." "I feel ridiculous." "You look like a boss." "I am a boss now, technically." He dropped Chloe at school, where she ran off to join Emma without looking back. The resilience of children never ceased to amaze him. At Virex, the receptionist greeted him by name. The security guards nodded with respect. Someone held the elevator door for him. Small things, but they added up to feeling like he belonged here. The IT department was already buzzing when Ryan arrived. David was waiting at what was now Ryan's office. A small room with a window overlooking the city. Nothing fancy, but it had a door that closed and enough space for a desk and 2 chairs. "Welcome to management," David said. "Coffee's in the break room. Your first meeting is at 9. Department heads gather in conference room A to sync on weekly priorities." "What should I prepare?" "Just listen today. Get a feel for how these meetings work. You can start contributing next week." Ryan spent the next hour reviewing his team's current projects. 8 people reported to him now, including Marcus, who'd sent an email over the weekend saying he was happy to work for Ryan and meant it. The department head meeting was intimidating. 15 people around a large table, most of them 20 years older than Ryan with decades of experience. Isabella sat at the head, running through agenda items with brisk efficiency. When it came time for infrastructure updates, David gave the report since Ryan was still transitioning in, but Isabella made a point of introducing him. Most of you know Ryan Mercer from recent news coverage. As of today, he's officially heading up our infrastructure division. I expect everyone to support his transition and treat him with the same respect you'd show any department head. A few people nodded. Others looked skeptical. One older man, who Ryan recognized as the CFO, looked openly doubtful. The meeting continued. Ryan took notes and tried not to feel like an imposter. Afterward, the CFO approached him in the hallway. "Mercer, got a minute?" "Sure." They stepped into an empty conference room. The CFO, Gerald something, Ryan hadn't caught the last name, crossed his arms. "I'm going to be straight with you. I think Isabella made a mistake promoting you this fast. You're technically competent, sure, but management requires political skills you haven't demonstrated." "Okay. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm trying to set realistic expectations. You're going to make mistakes, big ones. When you do, I'm not going to protect you just because you had a rough week." Ryan met his eyes. "I wouldn't expect you to." Gerald seemed surprised by that answer. "Fair enough. Just wanted to establish where we stand." He left without another word. Ryan stood alone in the conference room, wondering how many other people felt the same way but were too polite to say it. The rest of Monday was a crash course in management. Personnel issues that needed addressing, budget concerns that required immediate attention, a server migration that was 3 weeks behind schedule. By 6 o'clock, Ryan's brain hurt and he'd consumed more coffee than was probably healthy. Marcus stuck his head into Ryan's office. "Surviving?" "Barely. It gets easier, probably. I've never been a manager, so I'm mostly guessing. Thanks for the encouragement. Want to grab a beer, celebrate your first day as a boss?" Ryan thought about it. He could use the decompression time. But Chloe was waiting at after-school care, and he'd promised to help her practice writing her numbers tonight. "Rain check?" "Sure thing, boss." Ryan drove to the school and found Chloe sitting outside the director's office, looking upset. "What happened?" The director, Mrs. Chen, looked apologetic. "Nothing serious. Chloe got into a disagreement with another student about drawing techniques. No one got hurt, but we needed to separate them to cool down." Ryan looked at his daughter. "Want to tell me about it?" "Jacob said my Mr. Whiskers drawing was stupid because cats can't really be orange. Some cats are orange." "That's what I said, but he kept saying I was wrong, and I got mad." Mrs. Chen cleared her throat. "Chloe may have told Jacob he was stupid too." "Oh. Which is why we called you. She needs to apologize before she can return to the group." Ryan knelt down to Chloe's level. "Did you call Jacob stupid?" "Yes." "Was that the right choice?" "No." "What should you have done instead?" "Walked away or told a teacher." "Right. So what do you need to do now?" Chloe sighed dramatically. "Apologize to Jacob." She did, with the resigned air of someone who knew she was wrong but didn't want to admit it. Jacob accepted with equal reluctance, and both children were sent back to play. "She's got spirit," Mrs. Chen said to Ryan. "Reminds me of her father." "Is that a compliment?" "Coming from me?" "Yes." On the drive home, Chloe was quiet. "You okay, baby?" "I don't like when people say my drawings are stupid." "I know, but sometimes people are going to say things that hurt your feelings. That doesn't give you permission to hurt them back." "Even when they're wrong?" "Especially when they're wrong, because then you're just proving you can't handle criticism." Chloe thought about that. "Is that what you did? When everyone said you did bad things at work?" Ryan's throat tightened. "Yeah, that's exactly what I did." "Was it hard?" "Very hard. But you did it anyway." Because staying calm was more important than proving I was right in that moment. The truth came out eventually. Chloe nodded seriously. "Maybe I should try that next time Jacob is annoying." Probably a good idea. That night, while Chloe practiced her numbers at the kitchen table, Ryan got an email from Martin Graves. Subject line, Evan Reed update. He opened it with some hesitation. Trial date is set for April 17th. Prosecutor feels confident about the case. Evan's lawyer is still making noise about improper evidence collection, but the judge seems skeptical. Thought you'd want to know. April 17th, 4 months away. 4 months of waiting for closure. 4 months of knowing Evan was out on bail, probably still convinced he was the victim in all of this. Ryan closed the email and focused on Chloe, who was carefully writing the number 7 over and over, her tongue sticking out in concentration. This was what mattered, not trials or verdicts or vindication, just a little girl learning her numbers at the kitchen table while her father watched. Everything else was just noise. The weeks that followed blurred into a rhythm Ryan hadn't expected. Management turned out to be less about technical expertise and more about navigating human complications. Someone's mother got sick, and they needed flexible hours. A junior technician made a mistake that cost the company 3 hours of downtime. 2 team members couldn't stand each other and kept scheduling meetings to avoid being in the same room. Ryan handled it all with the same steady patience he used with Chloe when she had meltdowns over mismatched socks. By mid-March, he'd stopped feeling like an imposter. The CFO, who'd warned him about making mistakes, had actually complimented his handling of the server migration project. Other department heads started seeking his input on technical decisions. His team seemed to respect him, or at least they'd stopped giving him sideways glances when he made assignments. Chloe had adjusted too. The news coverage died down after a few weeks, and she went back to being just another first grader worried about spelling tests and recess politics. She and Emma were inseparable again, their brief conflict forgotten with the ease of children who hadn't learned to hold grudges. The only constant reminder of everything that had happened was the framed drawing in Isabella's office. Ryan had seen it during a meeting in February, Chloe's picture of Mr. Whiskers with the timestamp, professionally mounted behind glass. Isabella caught him looking at it. "Reminder that truth can come from unexpected places," she'd said. "Also reminder that I almost made the worst decision of my career. You fixed it. I shouldn't have needed to fix it. I should have prevented it." That conversation stuck with Ryan. The idea that doing the right thing after making a mistake didn't erase the mistake itself. It just meant you'd learned something. April arrived with warmer weather and the trial date creeping closer. Ryan tried not to think about it, but Martin sent regular updates. Evan's lawyer had tried multiple motions to dismiss, all denied. The prosecution had a solid case, witnesses lined up, evidence documented and verified. It should have felt like closure approaching. Instead, it felt like reopening a wound that had barely started to heal. The night before the trial, Ryan couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about facing Evan in court, about having to testify, about Chloe potentially being called as a witness, even though the prosecutor had promised to avoid that if possible. Around 2 a.m., he gave up on sleep and went to the living room. Chloe's drawings covered the refrigerator now, cats and snowmen and buildings and people. A chronicle of her imagination rendered in crayon and marker. One new addition caught his eye, a picture of Virex's glass tower with stick figures in the windows. He recognized himself by the tiny tie, Isabella by her height compared to everyone else, and there in another window was a small figure labeled Me, with an orange blob beside it. She'd put herself in his workplace, made herself part of that world. Ryan carefully unpinned it from the refrigerator and took a picture with his phone. Then he pinned it back and went to bed, managing maybe 2 hours of sleep before his alarm went off. The courthouse was downtown, a massive stone building that looked designed to intimidate. Ryan arrived early with Marcus, who'd insisted on coming for moral support. They sat on a bench in the hallway outside the courtroom, watching lawyers and defendants and families flow past. "You don't have to stay," Ryan said. "This could take all day." "I'm staying. You sat through enough crap alone, not doing that anymore." At 8:45, the prosecutor found them. Her name was Sarah Vance, no relation to Ryan's late wife, though the name had hit him hard when they first met. She was in her 40s, efficient and sharp, with the kind of presence that suggested she didn't lose cases often. "We'll start with opening statements, then move into witness testimony. You'll probably be called this afternoon. Just answer the questions honestly and don't let the defense attorney rattle you." "What's he like?" "Smart, aggressive. He's going to try to make you look vindictive, like you orchestrated this whole thing to get revenge on Evan for some imagined slight. Don't take the bait." "Great." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "You're the victim here. The jury will see that. Just tell your story." The courtroom filled slowly. Ryan recognized people from Virex, Jennifer from HR, David Langston, even the CFO who doubted him. Isabella arrived last, dressed in a charcoal suit that made her look simultaneously powerful and sympathetic. She sat directly behind the prosecution table where Ryan could see her. Then Evan was brought in. He looked smaller than Ryan remembered, prison jumpsuit hanging loose on a frame that had lost weight. His hair was grayer, his face more lined. He didn't look at Ryan. Didn't look at anyone, really, just stared at the defense table like he could will himself somewhere else. Patricia sat in the gallery with their two teenagers. The kids looked miserable, slumped in their seats with the resigned posture of people who'd rather be anywhere else. The judge entered and everyone stood. Judge Catherine Morrison, according to the nameplate. She was older, maybe 60, with the kind of face that suggested she'd seen every trick lawyers could pull. Opening statements began. The prosecutor laid out the case with clinical precision. Evan Reed, motivated by jealousy and resentment, had deliberately sabotaged Virex Systems' network infrastructure and framed Ryan Mercer for the crime. The evidence was overwhelming: server logs, file metadata, witness testimony, security footage. Evan's attorney countered with a different narrative. His client was a dedicated employee driven to desperate measures by a toxic work environment that favored younger workers over experienced professionals. The evidence was circumstantial. Ryan Mercer had motive too. He'd been overlooked for promotions, struggled financially, might have sabotaged the system himself and created an elaborate frame job to divert suspicion. It was nonsense, but the attorney delivered it with conviction. The morning was consumed by technical testimony. IT forensics experts explaining how they'd traced the attack script back to Evan's home computer. Network administrators detailing the remote access tools used to hijack Ryan's credentials. Ryan watched Evan during all of it, looking for some sign of remorse or recognition, some acknowledgement that what he'd done was wrong. Nothing. Just blank staring at papers on the defense table. They broke for lunch at noon. Ryan, Marcus, and Isabella went to a deli across the street. "How are you holding up?" Isabella asked. "I'll feel better once I testify and it's done." "His lawyer's going to come at you hard. Be ready for that." "I've been ready for 4 months." Marcus picked at his sandwich. "Can I ask something? If you could go back and change one thing about how this all went down, what would it be?" Ryan thought about it. The obvious answer was preventing the attack entirely, but that wasn't what Marcus was asking. "I would have spoken up sooner," Ryan said finally. "When I first felt like something was off at work, when Evan made those comments about special treatment, when I noticed the little things that didn't quite add up. I stayed quiet because I didn't want to cause problems. Maybe if I'd said something, this wouldn't have escalated. Or maybe Evan would have just found a different target," Isabella said. "You can't blame yourself for someone else's choices." "I don't. But I learned that silence doesn't protect you. It just gives other people room to write your story for you." They returned to the courthouse at 1:30. The afternoon session started with Martin Graves testifying about the security investigation. He walked the jury through the badge logs, the camera footage, the digital trail that pointed to Evan. Then Sarah Vance called Ryan to the stand. The walk from the gallery to the witness box felt impossibly long. Ryan was sworn in, his hand on a Bible despite not having set foot in a church since Sarah's funeral. He sat down and looked at the jury, 12 faces trying to appear neutral, already forming opinions. Sarah started with easy questions. Background, employment history, relationship with Chloe, establishing him as a real person, not just a name in legal documents. Then she moved to Friday, February 10th, the snowstorm, the school closure, bringing Chloe to work. "Where were you at 2:43 p.m. when the network attack occurred?" "In the third floor break room with my daughter. She'd spilled her crayons and I was helping her pick them up." "And your computer?" "At my desk on the other side of the building, locked as far as I knew." Sarah introduced evidence. The security footage showing Ryan in the break room, Chloe's drawing with the timestamp. The jury leaned forward to see the picture of the orange cat labeled Mr. Whiskers. One juror, an older woman in the front row, smiled slightly. Then it was the defense attorney's turn. James Keller, according to the nameplate on his table. Late 50s, expensive suit, the kind of aggressive confidence Ryan associated with people who'd never been told no. "Mr. Mercer, you testified that you were in the break room at 2:43 p.m., but security footage shows a gap of 47 seconds where you're not visible, correct?" The camera buffered during a power fluctuation. "Convenient timing, wouldn't you say? Right during the attack?" "The timing wasn't convenient for me. I lost my job because of it." "You got your job back. With a promotion, I understand. Quite a fortunate outcome for someone who was supposedly victimized, Sarah objected. The judge sustained it, but the seed was planted. Keller continued. You turned down a promotion last year that subsequently went to my client. That must have been frustrating. It wasn't frustrating. I made the choice for personal reasons. Personal reasons. Right. So you voluntarily gave up career advancement, watched someone you considered less qualified get the position, and felt no resentment whatsoever. I felt relieved. The promotion would have meant less time with my daughter. Or so you say now. But isn't it true that you've harbored animosity toward my client for over a year? That you saw an opportunity during the snowstorm to sabotage the system and frame him? No. You're technically skilled enough to create the attack script. You had access to the necessary systems. You brought your daughter to work that day, creating the perfect alibi. And then, miraculously, her drawing provides the exact evidence you need to prove your innocence. Ryan felt his temper rising but kept his voice level. My daughter drew a picture because she likes to draw. She wrote the time because her teacher had been working on numbers with the class. None of that was calculated. How convenient that a 6-year-old child provided the one piece of evidence that couldn't be questioned or verified. Sarah was on her feet. Objection. Counsel is testifying. Sustained. Mr. Keller, ask questions. Keller smiled like he'd already made his point. No further questions. Ryan stepped down feeling rattled. Isabella caught his eye and gave a small nod, but he couldn't tell if it meant he had done well or just survived. The prosecution called more witnesses, coworkers who testified about Evan's resentment toward younger employees, IT staff who explained the technical impossibility of Ryan executing the attack from the break room in the available time frame. Then, against Sarah's recommendation, she called Chloe. The defense had pushed for it, arguing that Chloe's drawing was central to the case and they had the right to question her about it. The judge agreed with strict limitations on questioning. Ryan watched his daughter being sworn in, her feet dangling from the witness chair, the Bible comically oversized in her small hands. She looked terrified. Sarah approached gently. Hi, Chloe. Do you remember drawing this picture? She held up the framed drawing. Chloe nodded. Can you tell the jury what you drew? That's Mr. Whiskers. He's my pretend cat. And that's the window where we were sitting. When did you draw this? At Daddy's work, during the big snowstorm. And did you write this time here, 2:15 p.m.? Yes. My teacher says always write the time and date on your work so you know when you did it. Was your dad with you when you drew this? Yes. He was reading his emails on his phone. Sarah smiled. Thank you, Chloe. Keller approached the witness stand with the careful manner of someone trying to seem non-threatening. Hello, Chloe. I just have a couple of questions. Chloe looked at her father. Ryan wanted to jump up, grab her, take her out of this courtroom, but he stayed seated, hands clenched in his lap. Did your dad tell you what time to write on your drawing? No, I just wrote it. Are you sure? He didn't suggest you add a timestamp to help him later? Chloe looked confused. I don't know what that means. Did your dad tell you what to draw? No, I just drew Mr. Whiskers because I like cats. But you don't have a cat, do you? No. Mr. Whiskers is pretend. Keller picked up the drawing. This is very good artwork for a 6-year-old. Did someone help you with it? I did it myself. All by yourself? Your dad didn't guide your hand or tell you where to put things? Chloe's lower lip trembled. I did it by myself. The judge intervened. Mr. Keller, move on. No further questions. Ryan met Chloe at the witness box and carried her back to the gallery, despite her being old enough to walk. She buried her face in his shoulder, and he could feel her shaking. You did great, baby, he whispered. It's over now. The trial continued for 2 more days. More witnesses, more evidence, closing arguments that painted competing pictures of what happened. The prosecutor's version, where Evan was a bitter employee who'd crossed an unforgivable line. The defense's version, where Evan was a scapegoat for a company covering its mistakes. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Ryan waited in the hallway with Marcus and Isabella, drinking terrible coffee from a vending machine and trying not to think about what would happen if the verdict went the wrong way. Finally, the bailiff called them back in. The jury had reached a decision. Everyone stood as the judge entered. Ryan's heart hammered so hard he thought everyone must be able to hear it. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman stood. We have, Your Honor. On the charge of computer fraud, how do you find? Guilty. Ryan felt his knees weaken. Marcus grabbed his arm to steady him. On the charge of corporate sabotage? Guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit wire fraud? Guilty. All 3 counts. Guilty on all 3 counts. Evan's face crumpled. Patricia made a sound that might have been a sob. Their kids sat frozen, staring at nothing. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later and dismissed the jury. As the courtroom cleared, Isabella put her hand on Ryan's shoulder. It's done. Ryan looked at Evan being led away by bailiffs. This should have felt like victory, like justice. Instead, it just felt sad. Sentencing came on a rainy Tuesday that felt appropriate for the occasion. The courtroom was less crowded this time. No jury, no spectators beyond those directly involved. Patricia testified on Evan's behalf, talking about her husband's good qualities and asking for leniency. Their children submitted written statements the judge read silently. Ryan was given the opportunity to address the court. He stood at the prosecution table, looking at Evan one last time. I don't hate you, Ryan said. I probably should, but I don't. What you did almost destroyed my life. It terrified my daughter. It damaged my reputation and put my career in jeopardy. But I also know that people make terrible choices when they feel cornered and desperate. He paused. That doesn't excuse what you did. Actions have consequences, and you deserve to face them. But I want you to know that I'm not celebrating this. I'm just relieved it's over. Evan didn't look up. Judge Morrison delivered the sentence. 8 years in federal prison, followed by supervised release and restitution to Virex Systems for damages. Less than the maximum, but more than the minimum. Evan was led away. His family left quietly. And Ryan walked out of the courthouse into the rain, feeling like a chapter of his life had finally closed. Isabella was waiting by her car. Need a ride? I've got my car, but thanks. Ryan, you handled that with more grace than most people would have managed. I had a good example. She smiled. Your daughter? You. The weeks after sentencing were strange. The news coverage picked up again briefly, then faded for good. Ryan's life returned to something approaching normal. Work, parenting, the occasional drink with Marcus. Routine and predictability. In May, David Langston officially retired. The company threw him a party with cake and speeches. He pulled Ryan aside near the end. You've done better than I expected. Better than I did, honestly. The team respects you. That's not easy to earn. I'm still figuring it out. You'll be figuring it out for years. That's the job. David handed him an envelope. This is for Chloe. For college, or whatever she needs when she's older. Consider it from the grandfather she never got to have. Ryan opened it. A check for $10,000. David, I can't. You can and you will. That little girl saved your life with a crayon drawing. Least I can do is help make sure she has opportunities. Ryan's eyes stung. Thank you. Thank her. She's the remarkable one. June brought the end of the school year. Chloe finished first grade with excellent marks and a report card full of comments about her creativity and kind heart. Her teacher included a note. Chloe has an unusual ability to see the world differently than other children. Nurture that. It's special. Ryan pinned the report card to the refrigerator next to her drawings. One Saturday in late June, Isabella called with an unexpected request. I'm having the leadership team over for a barbecue. Very casual. Family's welcome. Would you and Chloe come? Ryan hesitated. Is this a work thing or a social thing? Can it be both? They went. Isabella's house was in an expensive neighborhood Ryan had only driven through before, the kind of place with actual yards and trees. The backyard was full of people, department heads and their spouses, children running around, the smell of grilling meat. Chloe made friends with the CFO's grandkids within 5 minutes, running off to jump on a trampoline. Ryan found himself standing by the grill with Isabella and Marcus, drinking beer and talking about nothing important. This is weird, Marcus said. Like, good weird, but weird. What is? Isabella asked. All of us just hanging out like normal people. 6 months ago, Ryan was being fired and I was pretending I didn't know him to avoid being associated with the scandal. Now we're at the CEO's house eating burgers. People are complicated, Isabella said. Situations change. We adapt or we don't. That's very philosophical for a barbecue. I contain multitudes. Ryan watched Chloe laughing on the trampoline. her hair flying wild, completely unselfconscious in the way only children could be. She had no idea how close they'd come to losing everything, how one drawing with a timestamp had changed the trajectory of their lives. Or maybe she did know, in her own way. Maybe that's why she kept drawing, kept creating evidence that she existed and saw things and mattered. As the sun set and the party wound down, Isabella pulled Ryan aside. "I wanted to tell you something. The board approved a new position, VP of Security and Infrastructure. I'd like you to consider it." Ryan nearly dropped his beer. "VP? Isabella, I've been a department head for 4 months. And you've restructured our security protocols, improved disaster recovery systems, and built a team culture where people actually communicate problems instead of hiding them. That's VP-level work." "I don't know if I'm ready." "Ah, sheets. Nobody's ever ready. You just do it anyway and figure it out as you go." She paused. "Also, the position comes with a significant raise and flexible scheduling. You'd be able to pick Chloe up from school every day if you wanted." That detail hit harder than the title or the money. The ability to be present for his daughter, to not miss the small moments that added up to childhood. "Can I think about it?" "Take the summer. Let me know in September." Ryan collected Chloe, who was exhausted and grass-stained and completely happy. They drove home through neighborhoods where families were sitting on porches and kids were catching fireflies in jars. "Did you have fun?" Ryan asked. "Yeah, can we get a trampoline?" "Our apartment doesn't have a yard." "Oh, right." She was quiet for a moment. "Daddy, are we rich now?" "What?" "No, why would you think that?" "Ms. Isabella has a really big house, and you work with her, so maybe we're rich too. We're comfortable. That's different from rich." "What's comfortable mean?" "It means we have enough. We can pay our bills and buy food, and you can take art classes if you want. That's more than a lot of people have." Chloe considered this. "I want art classes." "Then we'll sign you up for art classes." That night, after Chloe was asleep, Ryan sat at the kitchen table with the job offer running through his mind. VP of Security and Infrastructure, a title that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago. He thought about everything that had led to this moment: Evan's betrayal, Isabella's intervention, Chloe's drawing, the trial. All of it connected in ways he was still processing. The easy narrative was that justice had prevailed, that truth won out over lies, that good triumphed over evil. But Ryan knew it was more complicated than that. Justice had prevailed because Isabella chose to ask questions instead of accepting easy answers, because Martin did thorough investigative work, because a 6-year-old girl wrote the time on her drawing because her teacher had told her to. Any one of those things failing would have resulted in Ryan's life being destroyed. He pulled out his phone and opened the photo of Chloe's latest drawing, the one showing both of them in his office at VRX. He stared at it for a long time, then sent it to Isabella with a short message. "I'll take the job. Thank you for believing me when no one else did." Her response came back almost immediately. "Thank you for being someone worth believing in." The summer passed in a blur of transition planning and swimming lessons and art classes where Chloe created increasingly elaborate pictures of Mr. Whiskers in various unlikely scenarios. September arrived with the first cold snap, a reminder that Chicago's brief summer was over and winter would return eventually. Ryan started his new role as VP with a mixture of confidence and terror. The press had long since moved on to other stories. The Virex scandal became just another item in the company's history, referenced occasionally in meetings about security protocols, but no longer the defining event. Life normalized in the way life does. Challenges came and went. Chloe started second grade. Ryan navigated executive politics and budget meetings, and the endless complications of managing both systems and people. Some of his former colleagues resented his rapid advancement. Others admired it. Most just accepted it as the reality and moved on. In October, Ryan received a letter from Evan. The return address was a federal correctional facility in Indiana. He almost threw it away without reading, almost decided that some doors were better left closed. But curiosity won. The letter was short. "Ryan, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't forgive myself. What I did was inexcusable, and I'm paying the price for it. But I wanted you to know that seeing you in court, hearing how you talked about me without hatred, made me realize something. You could have destroyed me completely. You had every right to, but you chose mercy instead." I don't know if I would have done the same in your position. I hope I get the chance to find out someday, though I don't deserve it. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean much, but it's all I have to give. Evan. Ryan read it twice, then filed it away in a drawer. He didn't respond. Didn't know what he would say if he did. Some wounds healed. Some just became scars you learned to live with. In November, Isabella announced she was stepping down as CEO. She'd been recruited by a larger tech company on the West Coast, offered an opportunity too good to refuse. The news hit Ryan harder than he expected. Isabella had been his advocate, his mentor, his shield against those who doubted him. Without her, would everything fall apart? She called him into her office on her last day. The framed drawing of Mr. Whiskers still hung on the wall. "I'm taking this with me," she said, pointing at it. "Reminder of the most important case I ever investigated. You saved my life. You saved your own life by raising a daughter who pays attention and cares about details. I just did what anyone should have done. But you're the only one who actually did it." Isabella smiled. "That's the thing about doing the right thing, Ryan. It shouldn't be remarkable. It should be expected. The fact that it's not is a problem we all need to work on fixing." She pulled the frame off the wall and handed it to him. "Actually, you should keep this. Give it to Chloe when she's older. Let her know that one afternoon when she was 6 years old, she changed everything." Ryan took the frame, feeling the weight of it. Not just the physical weight, but everything it represented. "What happens to VRX now, with you leaving? You help keep it honest. You and people like Marcus and Martin and everyone else who learned something from this disaster. Companies don't stay ethical by accident. They stay ethical because people inside them choose to do hard things, even when it's easier not to." They shook hands, and Ryan left her office for the last time. That evening, he showed the framed drawing to Chloe. "Remember when you drew this?" She looked at it, trying to remember. "That was at your work, when it was snowing." "Yeah, this drawing proved I didn't do something bad that people thought I did." "Because I wrote the time?" "Because you wrote the time, because you pay attention, because you're honest." Chloe studied the orange cat in the window and her own careful handwriting. "Can we hang it in my room?" "You want it in your room?" "Yeah, Mr. Whiskers should be where I can see him every day." Ryan hung it on the wall next to her bed, right above the stuffed elephant she still slept with every night. December brought the first real snow. Ryan and Chloe built a snowman in the park, using the traditional carrot nose and stick arms. Chloe insisted on naming it Mr. Whiskers, despite Ryan's protests. "Everything can't be named Mr. Whiskers." "Why not?" Ryan didn't have a good answer for that. He never did. On Christmas Eve, they sat together in their small apartment watching snow fall outside the window. The tree Ryan had bought was too big for the space, but Chloe had insisted on it. Presents sat underneath. Wrapped in paper, Chloe had decorated herself with drawings of cats and snowflakes. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby?" "This was a good year, right?" Ryan thought about everything that had happened. The firing, the accusations, the terror of facing a trial, the vindication, the promotions, the new opportunities. "Yeah," he said, "this was a good year. Even the bad parts?" "Even the bad parts. Because we got through them together." Chloe nodded seriously and went back to coloring in a new sketchbook Santa would be bringing tomorrow. Ryan watched her work, this small person who'd saved his life without even trying, just by being herself. Honest and creative and paying attention to the world around her. The year ended quietly. No dramatic revelations or sudden changes, just life continuing in its messy, complicated way. Ryan thought sometimes about the alternate timeline where Isabella hadn't asked questions, where Chloe hadn't written the time on her drawing, where no one had bothered to look deeper than the surface evidence. In that timeline, he'd be unemployed and blacklisted. Chloe would be growing up with a father destroyed by false accusations. Evan would be free, his crime unpunished, probably planning his next move against whatever coworker annoyed him. But that timeline didn't happen. This one did. The one where a child's honesty and a CEO's integrity and a single father's refusal to give up had somehow combined into justice. Not perfect justice. Evan's family still suffered. Ryan still had scars from the experience. The corporate systems that had failed him were better, but not fixed. But it was something. It was enough. On New Year's Eve, Ryan got a text from Marcus. "Meeting for drinks to celebrate surviving this crazy year. You in?" Ryan looked at Chloe, already asleep on the couch, with her new sketchbook clutched in her arms. "Rain check. Spending tonight with my daughter. You're getting boring in your old age, VP. Probably. But I'm okay with it. He covered Chloe with a blanket and sat beside her, watching her breathe. Outside, fireworks started early, somewhere in the neighborhood. Amateur celebrations of a year ending and a new one beginning. Ryan thought about what he'd tell Chloe someday when she was old enough to understand. About the week in February when everything fell apart and then came back together. About how her simple drawing had unraveled someone's entire conspiracy. About how truth sometimes won, but only if people cared enough to look for it. But those conversations were years away. Right now, she was 7 years old and worried about second-grade math and whether her drawings were good enough. Right now, that was all that mattered. The clock struck midnight. Fireworks bloomed in the sky outside their window, brief flowers of light against the winter dark. Ryan sat with his sleeping daughter and thought about the year ahead. New challenges, new opportunities, the continuing work of building a life worth living. It wouldn't be easy. It never was. But he'd learned something important during the worst week of his life. You don't need everything to be perfect. You don't need certainty or security or guarantees that things will work out. You just need to keep showing up, keep telling the truth, keep paying attention to the small things that seem insignificant until suddenly they're everything. You need to be like a 6-year-old girl drawing an orange cat by a window during a snowstorm, writing the time in careful numbers because her teacher said it was important to be specific. You need to believe that honesty matters, that details matter, that one person choosing to ask questions instead of accepting easy answers can change everything. Ryan pulled out his phone and took one last picture. Chloe asleep on the couch, fireworks visible through the window behind her, the framed drawing of Mr. Whiskers hanging on the wall above. Evidence that they existed, that they'd survived, that they'd found their way through the storm and come out the other side changed but intact. He sent the photo to Isabella with a simple message. Thank you for everything. Her response came back quickly. Thank you for reminding me why this work matters. Happy New Year, Ryan. You and Chloe are going to do extraordinary things. Ryan set down the phone and closed his eyes. The fireworks continued outside, celebrating endings and beginnings, the perpetual cycle of time moving forward, whether you were ready or not. He was ready. For whatever came next, he was ready. Because he'd learned the most important lesson life could teach. That survival wasn't about being perfect or having all the answers or never making mistakes. It was about being present, being honest, being willing to keep trying even when everything seemed hopeless. It was about being the kind of person who drew pictures of imaginary orange cats and wrote the time in the corner because details mattered. It was about being the kind of person who asked questions when everyone else wanted easy answers. It was about being human in all the messy, complicated, beautiful ways that meant. The snow continued falling outside. Chicago slept and woke and lived its million small dramas. And in a modest apartment in Rogers Park, a single father sat with his daughter and felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. Not the naive kind that believed everything would work out perfectly, but the harder, more durable kind that believed things could work out if you were willing to fight for them. That was enough. It had to be. And for Ryan Mercer and his daughter Chloe, sitting together in their small apartment on New Year's Eve with a drawing of an orange cat hanging on the wall, it was more than enough. It was everything.